Hey guys, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto had a secret affair with Tsunade's daughter and she is pregnant? If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comment. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. So let us start the story.
5 years had already passed since Mai's birth and it was now winter. Actually, Mai was to turn 5 years old very soon, which worried her mother. First, because Mai's birthdays were never that great and joyful as a birthday should be since it was just the two of them, and second because she thought time passed by way too quickly. And the more time passed, the more she was getting closer to becoming a shinobi. Tsunade knew that sooner or later Mai would become one. It was impossible for her not to be one. Tsunade's whole family were shinobis and kunoichis, including herself. Though the lady secretly wanted her to stay a civil, ignore everything about the shinobi world and ninjutsu just as if she were an average little girl. But at the same time, if Mai were ever to be attacked by a shinobi or if a war broke out again, she would not be able to defend herself, and that meant a certain death for her. So in fact she had no choice. Tsunade as well as Mai. Tsunade sighed. As Mai was to turn 5 years old, she would be old enough to enroll in the academy. And that meant going back to Konoha. She did not feel ready yet. She always feared the worst might happen if she went back to the village. She wanted to protect her daughter at all costs, but she could not be always there for Mai. When Mai was on missions, she would not be there. And what if Mai were to be badly injured and she arrived too late and could not save her in time? Just like it happened with Dan. That's when Tsunade came to a realization. She needed to teach Mai medical ninjutsu so that she could manage on her own if things were to go really bad. And the sooner the better. She might as well begin to learn the basics from now on if she is to enroll in the academy soon. That will definitely be a great advantage for her. Yet, Tsunade was still reluctant about the idea of her going back to Konoha. The Sannin was snapped out of her thoughts when a knock could be heard on her door, which startled her. Who could it possibly be? I'm not familiar with anybody here. Maybe an enemy. No, it can't be. Tsunade stood abruptly and gave a side glance at the door, suspicion written all over her face. She made her way to the door slowly and carefully and opened it in the same manner, ready to punch the intruder if he tried to attack her. However, she stayed still, not moving an inch as she saw the familiar face in front of her, confusion replacing the previous suspicion on her face. Jiraiya? She almost whispered. Tsunade. It's been ages. The said man said solemnly, however there was a note of sheer happiness in his manly voice which made Tsunade feel even more emotional. So many emotions could be read in these beautiful brown eyes. Are you gonna let me in or should I leave right now? Jiraiya said with a playful tone. Yeah, of course, come in. Quote. She let him close the door as she led him to the coffee table at the center of the living room. Tsunade sat down quietly as she slowly closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. As for Jiraiya, he stood tall in front of her, his arms crossed, waiting for her to speak. A long silence followed. I'm sorry. Quote. Jiraiya had a quizzical look on his face. He did not really understand what she was being sorry for. Quote. Tsunade was not even sure herself what she was apologizing for. For being a bad friend. Maybe? Quote. You don't need to, Tsunade. You're not one. Quote. Oh please, don't try to make me stop feeling guilty. I know you're just being kind to make me feel better, but that's not even worth it. Quote. Oh, you know it's not like me to do that, Jiraiya said teasingly. There was another silence. Also, I'm sorry for leaving the village with Mai. Quote. I know you were attached to her from the very first time you saw her and that you would have liked to have her near you. But still I did not listen to you and left just like that. And I even. Tsunade, it's okay, don't worry, I'm not mad at you for this and I'll never be. I perfectly understand that you needed to go, you know. Quote. Tsunade looked down, she still felt ashamed somehow. Jiraiya was super nice to her and would do anything for her to be happy, but still she was oblivious to his feelings and how she really hurt him. Where is Mai? Quote. In her room. She must be playing. Quote. Jiraiya merely nodded. You can go see her if you want. It's the room just behind me. Which Jiraiya did, walking slowly to the door of Mai's room, which was closed, opening to reveal a seemingly empty room. Jiraiya let out a small gasp. He scanned the room attentively. Little Mai was nowhere to be seen. What the? Jiraiya began panicking internally, beginning to imagine the worst scenarios about Mai's disappearance. What if she had been kidnapped? Yes, it was a very possible explanation to take into consideration. After all, as Mai was the daughter of a legendary Sannin, you could expect anything and everything to happen to her. In those times danger was everywhere, even if the war was over. While taking another look at the room, he noticed the window was left opened, which confirmed his doubts. How was he going to tell Tsunade that? In order to spare Tsunade that trouble, the Toad Sage considered going on his own to look for her. No, wait, if it takes too long Tsunade will definitely discover that Mai has disappeared and the situation will be even more complicated. He had no other choice than tell her now. Jiraiya? Quote. Tsunade appeared behind him, wondering what he was doing standing in the doorframe. She had found it strange hearing no noise at all after he opened the door. Jiraiya tensed greatly. He was so dead. Mai is not in her room. But don't worry, I'm gonna look for her and… No, Tsunade stated sharply. Jiraiya flinched, not understanding her reaction in the least. But Jiraiya tried to argue but was cut off once again by the princess. I said no, it's not necessary. I'm gonna go look for her myself, Tsunade said, crossing her arms. Jiraiya gave her a questioning look, waiting for Tsunade to clarify herself, which she did. It's not the first time that happens. Mai has gotten in the habit of sneaking out lately, Tsunade said plainly. Jiraiya could not believe what he was hearing. How so? She's not even 5 yet. Quote. Yeah, true, she is almost 5 years old, but she's definitely not an average child. You'll witness it with your own eyes when you see her. Quote. I see. Quote. But still you should be worried to death. Anything could happen to her while she is out. Plus I wonder how she can stay outside, it's freezing. Quote. No, there are no risks at all. She's safe in this place. And she is very resistant to the cold and loves snow, so much that she can't help sneaking out to go play in it. Quote. Jiraiya was somewhat flabbergasted. He gave Tsunade another questioning look as the lady sighed. But she is your daughter and… Yes, she is, but nobody knows about her except you, myself and Konoha. And if nobody knows who she is, then there is no threat. Besides, there have never been any shinobis coming in this place. Only civilians. That's why nothing can happen to her here. Quote. Jiraiya only gave her a deadpan look. I'm going. Wait here, okay? Quote. Understood. Still be careful. Quote. Yeah, don't worry. Quote. The blonde-haired Sannin took her leave swiftly while a long sigh escaped Jiraiya's lips. They really had some things to discuss today. A little girl was playing alone in the snow near the forest, somewhere in the land of fire. It was very cold, so cold that no one was out today except for those who had to work. But she did not mind though. She loved the snow and she was used to playing on her own. Because that poor little girl had no friends. Because she would always travel from place to place with her mother, and even when they stayed somewhere for a long while she would not make any friends. Because this sweet little girl is way too shy and withdrawn to dare go talk to strangers. Because she does not even know who she is herself. She knows nothing about her family. Well, she has her mother of course, but she simply knows her as her mother and that's it. She does not even know who her father is. And she does not have any siblings either. She would love to have one though, so that she could play with him or her, so that she would not be alone anymore. Deep inside she hated the solitude, but in fact it was her only friend, she told herself. She wished she could meet someone who would change her life, someone that would make her feel important, who would care about her. Who would pay attention to her for once. But that would not happen. The more the days and months and years passed and the more she was lonely. Yes, she was used to it and had learned to accept it, but a part of her was still suffering from it, which she tried to ignore, succeeding most of the time. But somehow when she expected it the least, it would come back to her right in her face, reminding her that she was a nobody. Just a shadow that nobody sees. Not even her own mother. And it hurts so much. Well, if she really knew who she was, she would not think like that. But she doesn't, for now, because she would not be kept in the dark forever. She was still playing, making an angel in the snow, when suddenly she heard a strange noise, which made her stop all movement. She stood up slowly, looking around her before staring at where the noise came from. After staying still for a little while, she decided to go and see what it was. It came from the forest. She went into it quietly with small steps. It was rather dark since the sky was covered with clouds, plus it was snowing slightly. Yet she was somewhat sheltered by the forest since it was deep and thick. And she had her senses and intuition to guide her. When she was close enough to the source of the noise, she noticed a large shape in the dim light. She wondered what it could be. She could also hear small whinings and grunts. She stopped in her tracks, afraid of what she might encounter, but out of curiosity she approached slowly until it became clear. It was a fawn, who was lying in the snow. As the little girl took a closer look at it, she noticed it was injured. And rather seriously. She let out a loud gasp. The fawn could not move anymore. It hurt her so much to see it like this. But she could not do anything on her own. She had to go ask some help. But who? Her mother. Yes, she was sure her mother would know what to do. Besides, she was not that far from their place, so it should not take long. She just had to hurry up. Don't worry, little baby, I'll be right back. I know someone who will take care of you properly. Just wait for me, it's gonna be alright, I promise, she said with her angelic voice. The fawn only whined feebly in response. That's all it could do. Mai looked at it a last time, before giving it a faint smile before running as quick as she could with her small legs, never looking back once. As she was running towards her house, she tripped on something and fell face first in the cold snow. She stayed like that for a little while. She did not know why, but she did not feel like moving. Surely because being in the snow was the most agreeable sensation in the world for her, though it may seem weird. My, quote, the said girl stiffened at the familiar voice. Now, she dared not move at all. She knew very well how things were going to happen. It's not as if it were the first time. Maybe the second, or the third, she could not really tell. And she hoped being seen in this vulnerable state would give her extenuating circumstances. Or on the contrary, it could just make things extremely worse for her. The person was now in front of her, their arms crossed and a stern look on their face. What happened? Quote, Mai then remembered she had to save the fawn and was back on her feet in a flash. Ka-san, you have to help me. There's a fawn in the forest. It's badly hurt. Come on, quick, quote. Mai was pulling on her mother's sleeve before pulling her to where the fawn was. Tsunade did not even have to utter a single words but complied to follow her nonetheless. On the inside, she was very glad her daughter was all right. They finally arrived towards the fawn, who was still in the same position as earlier. But this time it made no longer any sounds. Mai began panicking greatly. Is it dead? Quote. Tsunade kneeled in front of it so that she could check its pulse. It was very weak. If it weren't healed now, it would die soon. Though she hadn't paid attention before, she now noticed the blood on it and around it. Tsunade was paralyzed. She could not heal it. No, because she had suffered from hemophobia ever since Dan's tragic death. She had been unable to save him. And if she had been unable to save her own lover, how was she supposed to heal a mere fawn? She began trembling slightly at the sight. It became unbearable. Ka-san, quote. Tsunade snapped out of her thoughts, now focusing her whole attention on her daughter. Mai had a very painful look written all over her small face, tarnishing somehow the brightness of her soft features. It broke Tsunade's heart to see her like that. She wanted Mai to be happy more than anything else. She could not fail. Not again. She could not disappoint her daughter. Mai stared at her with pleading eyes which told everything. Tsunade had to do something. But then she remembered from earlier she had decided to teach Mai medical ninjutsu. Good thing she did. This is the perfect occasion to begin, she thought, somewhat reassured. Mai, do you want to learn how to heal it? So that when I'm not here you'll be able to do it yourself, okay? Tsunade said in a very soft tone. She put it like a question, though in fact she would not let Mai have a choice anyhow. Mai stared at her mother with big curious eyes which slightly widened. Was it really real? The child never thought her mother would ever ask her that. She always wondered how you had to do to heal someone. Could it just be done just like that? Weren't some things necessary to heal? Mai gave her brightest smile to her mother as excitement and curiosity took over her, nodding eagerly, which warmed Tsunade's heart. The Sanin got her confidence back thanks to it. Look, you have to put your hands just above the wound and concentrate your chakra in order to succeed, just like this. Tsunade said gently, beginning to make her a demonstration, but soon her fear of blood took over again. She began shaking once again, her chakra flow became perturbed. Mai put her own hands right beside her mother's as she seemed to have noticed that Tsunade had trouble concentrating her own chakra. She closed her eyes and focused with all her heart and strength while managing to sound relatively calm compared to earlier. At the beginning she did not seem to be really successful despite all her efforts, but after all it was quite normal. It was the first time, plus she had never been told about chakra or even what a shinobi is ever so. However, with her mother's help and her ongoing efforts, her concentration became more stable until small green chakra emerged from her hands. Mai watched in amazement as she kept focused nonetheless. It was like real magic. Never had she thought such a thing was possible. And she was really grateful her mother had shown her that. They remained in that position for a couple of minutes until Mai noticed the fawn trying to move slightly. The girl stopped to take a closer look at the wound. Tsunade stopping as well, shifting her gaze from the fawn to her daughter and back at the fawn again. It was not completely healed, but it was enough so that the fawn could move as it wished. Time will do. Don't you worry, it's out of danger now. It'll be able to move on its own. Quote, Tsunade said softly, closing her eyes. She had seen much enough blood for today. Mai smiled softly as well, now completely reassured. Now you can go your way, little fawn. I'm sure your family must be worried. Quote, said fawn finally managed to get up and looked at the two women. Then it made a noise before rubbing itself against them as if to thank them, which surprised them both. Mai stroked it sweetly. It has such a soft fur, she thought. After that it quickly took its leave as Mai waved goodbye as if it were a friend. Tsunade looked at her daughter with wonder. Not only did she remind her so much of her father, but also Tsunade had just begun to show her medical ninjutsu and she practically seemed to have gotten the knack of it. Well, let's get home now, shall we? It's getting late. Quote, the two women were finally back. When they entered the living room, Jiraiya was sitting where Tsunade had, his arms crossed and his eyes closed, which he opened when he heard them coming. Mai sort of freaked out when she saw the man, but at the same time she was intrigued. Who could this man be? They never received anyone home. And they had no friends nor relations here nor anywhere actually. Was this man someone her mother knew? Probably. Otherwise she would have never let the man in. And she highly doubted that he would have sneaked in without them knowing. Not in such a place. No, he couldn't be a bad guy. At least she hoped so. As she came to that conclusion, said man stood up to approach them without saying a word. Jiraiya observed Mai in details from head to toe. She had her father's eyes, but she had neither her father's nor her mother's hair. It was a slightly different color. It was lighter somehow and seemed to be a mix of her two parents, and strands of hair were hiding her small forehead. She also had a very lovely face. It was even more beautiful than what he remembered when she was born. And it also seemed to be a mix of both her parents. She was wearing some thick white fur around her neck to protect her from the cold. She's grown up so much already, and it's only been 5 years. Jiraiya thought earnestly. Mai felt really ill at ease. She wasn't used at all to being looked at in such a way. It really freaked her out. She wanted to hide behind her mother as if I were to shield her. Don't Mai. This man is no enemy, she clarified, kneeling to Mai's height and proceeded. Mai, this is Jiraiya, a childhood friend. You mustn't be afraid of him. He wouldn't even harm a fly, would you, Jiraiya? She said softly, a hint of a smirk appearing on her face as she uttered the last words. Jiraiya smirked himself. Of course not. Quote, hello little Mai, long time no see. I know you can't remember me since you were hardly a few months when you left the village, but I remember you very well. You're still as beautiful as when you were a baby. Quote, now Mai was definitely intrigued. Not only did he know her, but he also mentioned this village thing. What kind of village was it exactly? What did it look like? Where was it? And most importantly, why her mother had never mentioned it before? And that man? If he were her friend, why had they left that village? Had something happened between them? She wanted to know everything now. But now was not really the right time. Jiraiya had not finished the conversation with Tsunade and he needed to. Mai, you know you're gonna turn 5 years old soon, right? Jiraiya asked casually as he kneeled in front of the little girl. Said girl looked at him with her big curious eyes, then nodded eagerly. Well, you know I've got a present for you, but you'll have to wait. Quote, Mai made a face. She wanted to know what it was. Jiraiya held back a chuckle seeing her like that. She was so adorable. You know, if you wait patiently in your room, I'll tell you what it is, okay? He said, whispering the last part in her ear, low enough so that she could be the only one to hear it. Mai's features softened as she glanced at her mother. Tsunade looked back and forth between Jiraiya and her daughter. Mai, please. Quote, Mai knew too well what that meant and she complied, leaving quickly and quietly. closing the door to her room. "We should go outside, she will hear us otherwise," Jiraiya offered. Tsunade nodded. "Okay, but let's do this quickly." Quote, "I suppose you know why I've come here now," Jiraiya stated flatly. Tsunade looked at the ground. Of course, she knew. She had thought about that moment many times already. And now that it was here, she knew she could not avoid it. "Keep going," she merely said. She wanted him to get straight to the point already. "And you know of course that Mai will be able to go to the academy soon as she's gonna turn 5 years old." Quote, "I already thought about it. And I guess I have no choice than sending her back to Konoha." Quote, Jiraiya paused for a second and looked at Tsunade quizzically. "But you'll have to come back as well. You can't let her alone even in Konoha. Let alone going back there on her own. Anyway, she wouldn't be able since she doesn't know where it is." "Well, you'll take her back yourself, you don't need me for this." Quote, Jiraiya almost sweat dropped, his mouth slightly agape. "But you're not gonna abandon your own daughter, are you?" Quote, "She won't need me there, she will have you and all the others, she will be safe and well taken care of. Plus, she'll make tons of friends at the academy and she won't need me either to train, and I know she will do perfectly fine on her own." Quote, Jiraiya didn't know what to say anymore. He didn't want to argue with Tsunade right now, so he just let it go. "When shall I take her back to Konoha then?" Quote, "Come with me, I'll tell Mai directly so that she knows as well as you." Quote, "Mai, come here, I have something important to tell you." Quote, Mai had been sitting on her bed, replaying in her head the events that had taken place earlier quite thoughtfully, wondering if she would ever have answers to her questions. She did as told as the two were standing tall near the door. "Listen, once winter is over you'll go to the village of Konoha with Jiraiya. He will take care of you and will explain everything you need to know, okay?" Quote, Mai nodded quietly, happy inside though she didn't how it. She was finally going to know what she wanted. Winter was finally over, which meant it was time for Mai to go to Konoha with Jiraiya. The white-haired Sannin knew he had to tell her everything, that is about the system of the shinobi world and Konoha and the academy and her family as well. Except her father, Tsunade had demanded that he should not tell anything about him for whatever unknown reason, surely to protect her from pain. Anyway, he knew little Mai would ask questions over and over again about him, it was to be expected. And honestly, he had no clue how he would cope with that. He would tell her everything on the way, this way the trip would not seem too long. They were now ready to leave as the three of them had bid farewell. Mai was sad of course, she thought her mother would come with them, which would have been logical when you think about it. Why wasn't she coming anyway? Mai wanted to know, but she preferred to wait to ask Jiraiya on the road. As for Tsunade, she was sad, even sadder than her daughter though she did not show it. She did not want to appear weak in front of her own daughter. Mai's departure tore her apart, but at the same time she told herself it would be best for Mai if she stayed away from her for a while. At least in Konoha she would not be alone and she was sure she would be much happier. In fact, Mai and Tsunade had gotten closer for the past months. Because of medical ninjutsu. Ever since that time in the forest with the wounded fawn, Mai had been eager to do more medical ninjutsu to improve herself. She absolutely loved doing that. And so she had been practicing relentlessly with her mother guiding her, but without the blood of course. Mai had already made some good progress which made her mother really proud to be honest. And Tsunade was certain that Mai would be able to surpass her one day. It was bound to happen. And it was a great relief for the Sannin somehow. At least, if one day she had to save someone precious to her, Mai would surely be able to save them unlike her. This mirror though somehow seemed to take some of her inner guilt away, but still she was not completely at peace with herself yet. She felt it would take much more time again before being strong enough to learn to live with the pain and overcome it, and thus coming back to Konoha to be with her daughter and act like a real mother should. Mai stared at her mother with begging eyes, as if to tell her to come with them. But it was pointless. When Tsunade had decided something, it was impossible to make her change her mind. Though Mai did not know it yet, she would learn it later. Even if it was Mai, as of now, she would not give in. She simply couldn't. Jiraiya saw the hurt look on Mai's face and knew there was nothing to do left. That scene really looked like déjà vu. It was better for them to leave now before Mai refused to leave her mother or pleaded her to come at all costs. "Come on Mai, let's be going already. We have a long way to do before reaching Konoha. We mustn't dawdle," the man said plainly, hoping Mai would be reasonable and would listen to him. Mai didn't say anything. She didn't even nod in agreement. She stayed still and stared at the ground, strands of hair covering her angelic face. She was just sad. "Mai, I know you're sad, but I am too. I really am. But I can't come back now to the village. I still have a lot of stuff to do in the region, so please don't be sad. Even if I'm not there with you, I'll always be thinking of you. And I promise I'll try to come to see you soon, when I have some free time, okay?" Tsunade was the one to speak those kind and reassuring words. Her voice was filled with love and softness that she'd never thought she would have. It was her daughter who she was talking to after all. The blonde-haired lady hoped it would make Mai feel better and convince her to leave. Which indeed worked quite well, as little Mai looked up to her mother before giving her a bright smile, eyes shining with hope. She was so glad to hear her mother say that. And she really hoped her mother would come very soon so that they could all live together. Like a family. She needed to have a real family. She was thinking that her wish was finally going to become true. She couldn't have been happier than now. Because to tell the truth, she now thought that Jiraiya was her father. It had to be him. Who else could it be otherwise? And especially, why would her mother let this man escort her to the village and remain with him once there if he was not related to her in any way? Why not choose someone else? Because her mother had told her Jiraiya was a childhood friend. But for Mai it meant everything. It was crystal clear in her small head. Because childhood friend means lover, she thought, smiling as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. If only it were that simple. Mai suddenly hugged her mother tightly, which caught Tsunade out of guard, but nonetheless the woman pushed her away from her legs gently so that she could kneel down and hug her back properly. The little girl enjoyed that moment more than anything. It held such a warmth she had never felt before. It was the first time her mother had given her that kind of hug, or rather a hug at all. A real hug. She wished it would last forever and didn't want to let go at first, but now that she knew her mother had promised to come back soon to her, she was sure she would be given plenty more hugs like that. So she eventually let go as her mother smiled softly at her, and turned her attention back to Jiraiya. After all, she had not forgotten that she was eager to discover the village and the people living in it, though she dreaded a bit to be face to face with unknown people. As she wasn't used to that at all, she always felt ill at ease, just like with Jiraiya the first time. Well, now, she wasn't completely outgoing with him yet. No, in fact she was still quiet and shy with him because after all she hardly knew him when she thought about it. Even though deep down she was excited because she thought the man was her father, but after all that may be the reason why she was so reserved with him. "Are you ready now, little Mai?" Jiraiya asked softly. Mai nodded eagerly and was already beginning to walk away as Jiraiya looked at her with a smirk before beginning to walk as well next to her. Before the two were too far away for Tsunade to see them, they stopped in their tracks and turned around. Mai waved goodbye cheerily to her mother one last time while Jiraiya simply gave her a small but confident smile and nodded as a way to tell her everything was going to be alright. Tsunade tried her best not to cry. She was going to miss her daughter dearly, no matter what she wanted herself to believe. Jiraiya and Mai had already traveled half of the way, but it was way too much for Mai's small legs. Of course they had made small but reasonable breaks, at least long enough for Mai to rest, well, according to Jiraiya. That's definitely not what Mai thought. She wanted to go on, but her legs would not follow. Hence her collapsing on the ground. Fortunately for her, Jiraiya noticed it and caught her in time before she could completely collapse on the earth. The man then lifted her up as he was aware that she could no longer stand up to carry her on his broad shoulders. He didn't really have any other choice left anyway. Yet, Mai was used to walking since she had already traveled several times with her mother through the land of fire. Well, actually her mother would carry her most of the time since she was too little to walk such long distances. So that was pretty understandable. Mai would have to work hard on her endurance if she wanted to become a good shinobi. Jiraiya made a mental note to help her with that once they were settled in the village. Said girl put her hands around the Sanin's neck and lowered her head, as if ready to fall asleep. The walk had been silent and still was, though Jiraiya didn't really mind. Mai let out a bored sigh as she was constantly wondering when they would finally arrive to that village. The trip seemed to be endless to her. Right now she wished she could do some more medical ninjutsu, though she was aware she couldn't. She really hoped she would be able to practice in Konoha. But it would not be the same without her mother. It was their thing. Yes, it was the only real and interesting activity they shared together. Fortunately, her mother would join them soon. Jiraiya, noticing her boredom, remembered he had to explain everything before they arrived. and he thought this was the perfect occasion to do so. I have a question for you. But it's alright if you don't know the answer. I'm here to explain anyway. Mai straightened herself up out of curiosity, waiting for him to continue, which he did anyway. Do you know what a shinobi is? The question itself wasn't the easiest one. Far from it, but he preferred to begin with the most meaningful and important part before going deeper into details. A sheerly confused look was now plastered on Mai's small face. What is he talking about? Of course, Jiraiya, knowing she would have no clue, answered the question for her. A shinobi is a ninja, a warrior, someone who fights to protect his village and the people who live in it, and most importantly the people he loves the most. A shinobi is someone who endures. He always has to keep going, even through great pain and even if he loses everything dear to him. Because he's perfectly aware he might die anytime, whether it be tomorrow, or in 2 days, or in a week, a year, several years, whatever, and this lasts until his death. And even dead he still remains a shinobi. Talking about it, it's not what a shinobi does during all his life which defines him as he truly is or what he's worth, but it's what he does just before he dies, you see. The Sannin paused, not wanting to overwhelm her with too much information. She must be already confused enough with that. He waited for a short while to let time to Mai to register all the information. She will have to remember this all her life. Mai didn't understand why he was telling her all of this though. What did it have to do with her precisely? However, she would have her answer sooner than she thought. Jiraiya then proceeded with his speech. And the village that the shinobi has to protect, there are 5 of them actually. The first to have been founded is Konoha, and later the other villages just did the same, copying exactly the same system Konoha had created in the first place. Mai's face was now full of awe and curiosity. So the village where her mother and father came from, including herself, was one of those villages. Actually, she didn't remember the name of their village, although it was very likely her parents had mentioned it while she was with them. What village is ours? She asked, eager to know more. Jiraiya smirked. He was glad he managed to pique little Mai's curiosity. Konoha, of course. The hidden village in the leaves. The most powerful one of the land of fire. All the most powerful nations have one, even those which are weak, but they are minor. Mai was impressed and she didn't hide it. She never thought such a concept would exist. She definitely wanted to know even more now. What about the others? Well, there are 5 main villages, the most powerful ones of course, which are part of what we call the 5 elemental nations. So you see, the village of Konohagakure is part of the land of fire, as I already told you. After you have Kirigakure, the hidden village in the mist, in the land of water. Iwagakure, the hidden village in the rocks, in the land of the earth. Kumogakure, the hidden village in the clouds, in the land of thunder, and finally Tsunagakure, the hidden village in the sand, in the land of the wind. And who founded our village? That was it was finally time to tell her. Before knowing that, you need to know how the villages work themselves. Each village is governed and represented by what we call a cage, which means shadow, and then the name differs according to the natural element of the elemental nation. Look, as an example, for Konoha it is fire, that's why our leader is called the Hokage. For Kiri it is water, then it's the Mizukage. For Iwa it is earth, then we have the Tsuchikage. For Kumo it is lightning, so it is the Reikage. And finally for Suna it is the wind, so it's called the Cage. I guess you have understood what I meant. Yes, I have, Mai said expectantly. Good. Well, as for Konoha, since it was the first shinobi village to have ever existed, this is logical. I tell you who was at the origin of it in the first place. It was the Shodai Hokage, of course, but he was definitely not just any man. Mai was even more intrigued now. What kind of man could he be? He was part of the famous Senju clan of the forest, one of the 2 most powerful clans of his time, the other one being the Uchiha clan, a very special clan which is said to be cursed. But that's not what's important right now, you'll learn about that later. So, to go back to what I was saying, his name was Hashirama Senju, and so he was the leader of his clan and was at war with the Uchiha clan, since those 2 clans had been sworn enemies since the dawn of time for whatever unknown reason, and thus hated each other with a burning passion. However, the Shodai-sama was nothing like that. He simply wanted peace with the Uchiha, and so he tried endlessly to make the leader of the Uchiha clan sign a peace treaty, but the man refused every time. It took him a long while, but in the end the 2 leaders came to an agreement and signed a peace treaty, thus creating the village of Konoha soon after, where the 2 clans could live in harmony after so many violent battles and deaths. Mai was astounded now. Never would she have thought either that such a concept as war would exist. She was extremely puzzled. What did those two clans even fight for anyway? What was the purpose of war? Why did it even exist? What did it mean exactly? Fortunately, thanks to that man and the creation of Konoha, all this folly had stopped, she told herself. If only she knew. Jiraiya had tried to make it sound as simple as possible for her. After all, she was only 5 even if she was to become a shinobi. Anyway, she would learn all of this in detail at the academy. Why do people fight between them? Mai asked casually. Jiraiya closed his eyes, sighing. He himself was not even sure to have the true answer. Who knows? Jiraiya did not wish to go further into the subject. It was way too complex to be tackled. Mai knew she wouldn't have a clear answer, but it was alright. For her, war was just some stupidity and that was it. Jiraiya hesitated to tell her who the Shodai Hokage really was. Maybe he'd better wait. He had no idea. Let's give it a try. Mai, do you want to know a funny fact about the Shodai-sama? Mai did not hesitate a single second. Yes, what is it? How could he put that? He couldn't just tell her the truth bluntly. It would be a bit brutal, at least in his opinion. Or not. Maybe she would be overly happy about that. What would you say if I told you that you were related to him? Really? Mai could not quite believe what she had just heard. Maybe she simply heard wrong. She had to make sure. Is it true? She asked, unsure. Well, yes, it is actually. Now Mai was even more astounded. No, it was a much stronger feeling. Something undecipherable. Her? Related to that great man? The man who had stopped the war and created the village of Konoha. How was it even possible? Her mother had never told her about anything. Neither Konoha, nor the Shodai, or even what a shinobi was and how the whole system worked. She felt so upset. Why would her mother hide the whole truth to her? She didn't understand at all and she hated that feeling. Fortunately, to her great relief, her father was there to reveal the truth to her. Who is he exactly to me? She asked shyly. He was your great-grandfather, more precisely your mother's grandfather. Mai was speechless. If anything, she would have thought she was related to him on her father's side, but no. In fact, that made her even more upset than she already was. No, she was hurt. Why did she not tell her? Why? Anyway, she would have the opportunity to ask directly her mother when she sees her. Soon. So she put that feeling away for now and tried to regain her composure. She could still not believe that nonetheless. She was so amazed. She closed her eyes, seeming to be satisfied, and leaned her head onto Jiraiya's. Thank you. Jiraiya smiled contentedly. It's okay. But you don't have to thank me though. It's only natural I tell you this. Quote. Now Mai was sure about it. This man was her real father. The two had finally arrived at their destination after 2 days of walking. Mai was so tired. Her only wish now was to sleep in a real bed and to have a true night. Camping was definitely not her thing. They were now standing in front of Konoha's giant doors as the 2 guards at the entrance had stopped them to control their identities. Fortunately, as Jiraiya was well known by everyone in the village, there wasn't any problem and could directly enter. Oh, what a cute little girl you have there. No, wait. Is she? Yes, that's it. She's Tsunade's daughter. Kato Mai. Oh my, she's so beautiful. What a luck you have there, Jiraiya-sama. One of the guards said. The other one could only agree. Welcome home. Mai-sama, Jiraiya-sama, please go ahead. We don't want to keep you waiting in any way. The other said very formally. Both were staring at Mai in awe while Mai blushed hard. How embarrassing. She did not like that at all either. She hoped she would go unnoticed in the village. But in fact she knew it would be impossible. Oh my god, what was she going to do? Jiraiya and Mai were now wandering through the busy streets of Konoha. Never would have Mai thought it to be so big. It was so wonderful. Mai already loved it. It was so different from all the places she had stayed at with her mother. She could not exactly say why, but she could definitely feel it. There was such a great warmth emanating from the village, as if nothing could happen to you there. It was so good for Mai to feel like that. She came to wonder why her mother would leave such a fantastic place. And especially why she had forced her to leave with her without Mai's agreeing. If she had been her mother or old enough to say no, never would she have left this place. Mai looked back and forth from right to left relentlessly as she was almost running, her weariness having been overwhelmed by her excitement. She wanted to see everything and she couldn't wait. Mai, not so fast. There are 2 people I would like to introduce to you first. Come here. Mai made a face. She wanted to discover the rest of the village, and especially not be face to face and have to talk to any people. Of course, she knew it was rude, but she was so afraid of them. She complied anyway since she couldn't do otherwise. She went back on her tracks and stopped to stand next to Jiraiya as she was staring at the ground. She didn't dare look up but had to, of course. So she slowly lifted her head up and was met with indeed two people. A male and a female. They looked very young, well of course much older than Mai. They were more or less 10 years older than Mai. She looked at them one by one. The female had long red hair and violet eyes and was wearing a yellow outfit with black tights and sandals. As for the male, oh my. Mai couldn't believe it. She had never seen someone so handsome in her whole life. Well, except her mother, but that was completely different. Her jaw dropped totally at what she saw. She locked eyes with him but almost immediately avoided his gaze. It was too much for poor little Mai. Mai, this is Kushina and Minato. Minato is my student and Kushina his girlfriend. Mai practically choked on her own saliva. Was it really true? Of course, it was. Her own father would never lie to her. What a fool I am. And of course you guys already know who Mai is. Jiraiya added nonchalantly. Kushina's eyes shined with stars as she contemplated Mai. Oh my god, what a beautiful little girl you have become. You're so pretty. Look at her, Minato. She's grown up so much already in 5 years only. I can't believe it. Kushina couldn't control herself, she was too excited. No, that was an understatement. Mai completely freaked out as Kushina approached her to take her in her arms. She quickly went to hide behind Jiraiya's back, feeling it was the only safe place for her to be. Minato's sweat dropped, knowing too well Kushina. He sincerely silently prayed for her to calm down. Oh, sorry about this. You know Mai is afraid of people she doesn't know. It was the same with me at first, so don't worry. You just need to be patient. Jiraiya said, trying to cool down the tense atmosphere hovering over them. Unfortunately, patience was not Kushina's forte. But still she understood as Mai was still a small child. And so she would make efforts for her. She found it so cute actually. Mai was really adorable. Minato sighed quietly in relief as Mai took a peep at the two to see what was happening. I'm really happy that you're back among us, Mai. You'll see you are going to love the village. This time Minato had been the one speaking with a very kind, smooth and soft voice which made Mai blush furiously. She was glad they could not see that. There was no answer on her part which was to be expected, and even if she had wanted to reply she couldn't have anyway. Now completely flustered, she definitely needed to get away from that awkward situation. There was only one way. She fell on her knees swiftly, ready to collapse on the ground just like earlier during the long trip. Jiraiya, who again noticed it, turned around and caught her again to carry her in his arms this time. Well, I guess it's time for us to settle down in our new home. Anyway, you'll have plenty of time to decover the village, Mai. Minato. Kushina. I'll see you around. Yeah, of course. Rest well, little Mai. Tomorrow's gonna be a long day, Databane. Mai gave her a curious look. What did she mean by that? Minato smiled softly at the child. We'll see you soon then, Mai. I hope you will like your new home. This time Mai buried her face in Jiraiya's chest to avoid total embarrassment. Anyway, I'm sure you guys have better things to do, don't you? Jiraiya said suggestively, raising his eyebrows, which made Minato blush while Kushina got angry. Jiraiya-san. And with that Jiraiya and Mai disappeared in a puff of smoke. The house was a bit far from the center of the village. But it was really nice. Neither too big not too small, and there was even a small garden. Mai, there's one more thing I have to tell you before I let you rest. Quote. Mai turned her attention to him, ready to hear what he had to say. Tomorrow it will be your first day at the academy, to learn how to become a good shinobi. Quote. It was another great surprise for Mai. She gulped anxiously. It meant there would be plenty of other kids who were going to learn to become shinobis too. And she hoped things were going to go well. Tomorrow had finally come, way too fast to Mai's dislike. The night had seemed so short to her. And she was still feeling tired. But she had to get ready to go to the academy anyway. Mai made a face. Ka-san could have told that to me much earlier. She sincerely hoped other kids would be nice. How was she even supposed to behave with them? She had never talked with a child for real. Yes, she was a child herself, so logically should know what behavior she should adopt. But after all, even if kids stay kids, they still may have personalities that differ. You couldn't know until you saw them. Mai sighed tiredly but nonetheless got ready quickly before making her way towards the living room where Jiraiya was sitting. She noticed he was writing something, though she couldn't see what. And she didn't inquire him about it, she guessed it was personal. Jiraiya didn't even notice her coming his way. The child was so quiet and the man was so engrossed in his book that he didn't even sense her chakra. Mai stood in front of him for a little while, not sure whether she should disturb him or not, somehow fearing the man's reaction. It seemed to be so important. She glanced at the table where he was sitting and saw the food put on her side. She wondered whether it was for her or not. After all, he could have put it aside while he was working on his book so that he could eat it later, who knows. She didn't like much the idea of standing rooted to the spot, so she eventually coughed slightly to catch Jiraiya's attention. Said man stopped what he was doing and looked at Mai, noticing she was already ready to go to the academy. Good thing you're ready. Here's your breakfast, try to eat it as quick as possible. We have one important thing to do before you go to the academy, Jiraiya said very earnestly. Mai looked at the food again and then at Jiraiya before nodding shyly and sitting quietly to do as she was told. She wondered what that important thing to do could be, but she didn't really dare ask him. Anyway, she would know it soon. After having eaten her breakfast quite quickly, which somewhat surprised Jiraiya, yes, because Mai was really hungry and seemed to have a good appetite, the two left the house without waiting anymore. As Jiraiya and Mai were walking at a steady pace through the village, they finally stopped in front of a specific building. It was bigger than all the other buildings Mai had seen in Konoha until now. To her it looked like a kind of tower, but rather a weird one. What is it? Mai asked curiously. It is the Hokage residence, where the Hokage lives and works. Quote, Mai was impressed to say the least. So that's where her great-grandfather had lived. Thinking about him, she wondered who the Hokage was now and what kind of man he was. And who is the Hokage now? Quote, you're going to meet him now, so please don't worry. He's a very kind and careful man. An old man who also used to be my sensei when I was younger and your mother's sensei as well. He himself used to be the student of the second Hokage, Tobirama Senju, the brother of the Shodai-sama, so your great-granduncle. Quote, Mai was speechless once again. Never would she have thought her great-grandfather had a brother. Let alone that he had succeeded him as the Hokage. So that man was logically the third Hokage, right? She gulped nervously, she didn't feel ready yet to meet such a great and imposing man as the Hokage. Why couldn't it wait? Why was it so urgent? What was he going to tell her? Mai didn't feel reassured at all. Having to go to the academy was already stressful enough, she didn't need that right now. Hey, little Mai, I told you not to worry. Everything's gonna be alright, okay? I'll be there anyway, so please relax a bit, okay? Quote, Mai blinked, a blank look plastered on her face. Even if her father was there, she wouldn't be completely reassured, but still she decided to try her best to stay calm and composed when face to face with the Hokage. The little girl looked at the man she considered to be her father with anxious but determined eyes, while Jiraiya gave her a small smile as well as a nod. Come on, let's go while he doesn't have too much work to do yet. Quote, Jiraiya and Mai were led by a man to the door to the Hokage office. Though Jiraiya didn't need it, he had accepted to be led nonetheless. Mai observed carefully the inside of the building, taking in every detail, and somehow wondered at the long halls that led to the office. To her, this place seemed to have a sort of mystical dimension, though she couldn't really account for it. Once the man had left, Jiraiya knocked quietly at the door before directly opening the door, not bothering to wait for the Hokage to tell them to come in. Mai followed closely behind him, hiding. Though she wanted to see what the man looked like, she didn't want to make her presence known. Jiraiya stopped a few meters before the Hokage's desk as said man was staring through the window, showing only his back to them. The man knew it was them. He had been expecting them. He didn't move an inch, still staring intently through the window as if waiting for something to happen. Sarutobi-sensei, Jiraiya stated as if to try to catch his sensei's attention. Mai didn't like that. Why was he acting this way towards them? It made her even more stressed. The Hokage stayed still for a short while before slowly turning around, eventually revealing his face as Jiraiya moved slightly to stand next to Mai and so that the Hokage could see the young girl properly. Mai couldn't help but be somewhat surprised when she saw his face for real. Jiraiya had told her he was an old man, but actually he wasn't that old. The Hokage looked at Mai earnestly before approaching the duo slowly and quietly, which unsettled Mai greatly. What was he going to do? Mai could only see him as a very mysterious man for now, not identifying the kindness or the carefulness Jiraiya had told her about. But once again Jiraiya couldn't lie to her, or could he? Plus, this man had been the Nidaim's student and so must have been close to her great-grandfather as well. So why would the man be mean? No, he couldn't be. Jiraiya was surely right. The Hokage stopped right before them and looked again at Mai while the girl looked at her feet as she was still too afraid to make eye contact with him. The Hokage, noticing it, then turned his attention to Jiraiya. "Thank you for taking the time to come this early," the Hokage said solemnly, a note of gratitude in his voice. Jiraiya merely nodded while Mai observed the two men. They were even more impressive together and she somehow felt she didn't belong there. She still didn't understand in the least what she was doing there. "I'm really glad to see you again, Mai. You've grown up so much already," the Hokage said warmly, looking at a sheerly confused Mai again. It was definitely weird to her. Everybody seemed to already know her, though she couldn't remember the people at all. It really made her flustered, more than what she could ever have imagined. And she didn't even know what to reply. So she didn't say anything at all. "Sorry about that, sensei, she is quite shy with people she doesn't know," Jiraiya apologized. The Hokage laughed softly. "It's okay, I understand," he replied smiling. "Please, if you will, I would like to have a few words with Mai in private. Not that I have anything to hide from you, but you know," the Hokage stated suggestively. "Of course, I understand, it's more than fine, sensei." Quote. Mai was even more confused. What was that all about? "Then, follow me, Mai, we are going to a special place." Quote. Mai had complied to follow the third Hokage and the two had walked a short distance, much to Mai's great relief, and were now standing on a mountain. You could see the whole village from there, a view that made Mai stare in awe at it. She had never seen such a view before but found it really impressive and even beautiful. The Hokage smiled again at Mai, seeing her reaction. "Do you know what this place is called, Mai?" Quote. Of course, the girl had no clue. She shook her head to say no before asking, "Why is it special?" Quote. The Hokage smiled softly, closing his eyes. "Because it's where it all began." Quote. Mai wasn't sure she had understood well. What did he mean exactly by that? She gave him a confused look as the man went on. Before the village was built, the Shodai-sama had already found the place where it would be built one day. That's why it is so meaningful, you see, Mai. Quote. Mai was again speechless. She couldn't believe she had discovered so wonderful and interesting things in hardly 2 days. And by great men. She didn't know what to say. This is called the Hokage Monument. Quote. Mai liked the name, it sounded so cool to her small ears. That's why the faces of the Hokages are carved in the rock, he added. Mai stared at the Hokage curiously. She hadn't even noticed that. How could she have missed it? Look just slightly beneath you. Quote. Mai glanced at the rock, indeed noticing the 3 faces carved into the stone, though not clearly. It was so awesome. She then wondered if they had the same thing in the other villages as well. It would be funny. I have a question for you, Mai. Who do you think a leaf shinobi has to protect before anyone else? Quote. Mai didn't expect that question. She was considering it when suddenly she remembered Jiraiya's words from yesterday when they were on the road. A shinobi is a ninja, a warrior, someone who fights to protect his village and the people who live in it, and most importantly the people he loves the most. Quote. His most precious person? She was still not sure about the answer. The Hokage looked at her curiously before smiling gently. I guess you will find out the real answer very soon. Quote. Mai was lost. Who could it be then? She would have to ask Jiraiya later. So today is a really important day for you, isn't it? The Hokage continued, changing the topic. Mai tensed slightly. She had totally forgotten she had to go to the academy. As long as she wasn't late, she told herself it would be fine, or at least tried. I know it's never easy to start something new in a place you're not familiar with and where you know nobody, but I'm certain you will adapt very quickly to your new environment and manage to make many friends. The Hokage stated reassuringly with such kindness in his voice, maybe even more than in Jiraiya's. Mai gave a faint smile. She really hoped he was right. Mai was again surprised. So the Hokage had a son her age? She hoped they could get along, as well as with the other students. Well, if he were as nice as his father, it shouldn't be a problem. A short silence followed, only the wind could be heard. We'd better get going now. The class must already have started. I will escort you myself to the exact room so that you don't get lost. Quote, oh no. Mai just wanted to escape right now. Not only was she late but also she would be introduced by the Hokage himself in front of the whole class. She would never be able to stand it. What a bad start. Mai and the Hokage were now standing in front of the academy, the girl not understanding why they would stop if she was already late. Well, whether she was a little bit less late or even later didn't change anything actually. She was still late. Here it is. This is the main entrance of the academy. I hope you will like it. Quote, she couldn't really care right now, it's definitely not what mattered. Anyway, it's not as if she had been given a choice. Mai nodded shyly as if to say she were ready to enter. Come on then. Quote, they entered the building soundlessly and crossed the halls before finally arriving in front of a large door which the Hokage opened immediately, without knocking or anything. Mai's heart skipped a beat. The moment she dreaded so much was finally here. The man that had been talking without interruption to the already bored class stopped abruptly upon hearing the door being opened, wondering who the hell could come and disturb him during his class. However, he practically froze on his spot when he saw the Sandame approaching him, not acknowledging Mai's presence, who shyly followed behind the Hokage. Hokage-sama? To what do I owe the honor of your presence here among us? The teacher said, somehow panicked, as if something very serious had happened, bowing a bit exaggeratedly once he had finished speaking. Well, nothing much. He began casually, noticing how panicked the Junin instructor looked. Oh yes, just one thing. I would like you to welcome this young lady in your class. From now on she will be one of your students. He finished, pointing at Mai, who stood very close to the Hokage, as if he were a protector. The whole class watched the scene taking place before them very attentively, wondering who that girl could be. None of them had ever seen her in the village. They also wondered why their Hokage would interrupt the important stuff he had to do just for that girl. If only they knew. The tear took a closer at the little girl he hadn't noticed before, panic giving way to sheer confusion as a skeptical look was now plastered on his face. Of course, he wouldn't discuss the Hokage's orders, but still, that girl shows up out of nowhere and now she had to become his student. What the hell? Why would their dear Hokage allow an outsider to stay and study in the village? Not that I want to offend you, Hokage-sama, but may I ask why? He said very carefully and politely, not wanting to make the Hokage angry. The Hokage closed his eyes slowly, holding back a sigh. The whole class watched now expectantly. This girl is the great-granddaughter of the Shodai-sama. The Hokage replied simply and casually in order to clear any misunderstanding about Mai's real identity, not wanting to bother with long explanations. A long silence then followed that statement. It was as if time had stopped. The class were now wide-eyed, including their teacher, new questions raising in their minds, such as why had they never heard about her? And why had she not been living in the village with them? That was such a brutal shock. Right now Mai desperately wished for the earth to swallow her up so that she wouldn't have to face this kind of situation ever more. A deep blush made its way on her small angelic face. She felt so embarrassed. Apparently, not everyone knew who she really was, or even who she was at all. She then wished her mother were here to comfort her, to tell her everything would be fine, or rather her father. She felt she would never be able to face the other kids ever again. Why did they seem so surprised anyway? When she really thought about it, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Yet, it definitely was, to Mai's dismay. She was just a kid like them after all. Big mistake. Poor Mai didn't seem to have realized yet the importance of the figure of the Hokage in the village. Though she had been very much impressed herself when she had learned all about the Shodai and the founding of the village, she didn't want to be treated differently, just because she was related to the Shodai Hokage. The Hokage, not wanting to waste more time to the teacher and the class, coughed to get everyone's attention, including Mai's. I entrust her to you, so can I count on you? Quote. The teacher stiffened as he stared back at the Hokage, panic overwhelming him again, even more greatly than earlier. Sure, Hokage-sama, you know you can ask me anything. He stuttered a bit, bowing again. He then quickly turned his attention back to Mai, making her flinch slightly in fear. Please go take a seat, Senju-sama. It's a real honor to welcome you in our class. I hope it will be good enough for you, he said, still panicking very much and bowing exaggeratedly once again. The Hokage rolled his eyes at such ceremonial talking and acting but remained quiet nonetheless. Mai was totally petrified. That was too much for the poor helpless child. She couldn't even manage to think straight any longer. She really wished she could disappear right now. Well, I'm going to leave you then. I don't want to disrupt your class any longer, the Hokage stated to break the awkward silence, starting to make his way towards the door to exit. He stopped in the doorframe to take a last look at Mai. He secretly hoped Mai would be alright after that. After the Hokage left, everyone was still flabbergasted because of what had just happened. Mai was still petrified but knew she'd better go and sit somewhere in order not to draw attention on her even more. So she swiftly went towards the rows of students in a dead silence as everybody had their eyes glued on her. Most of the students were still watching her with wide eyes. In fact, she wondered whether it was not even worse than earlier. She really needed to find a free seat quickly, if possible at the very back of the room where nobody could see her and where she would be isolated. However, as she was walking with hurried steps, she stopped abruptly at the first row, noticing that the room was already very crowded. She scanned it carefully to see where she could possibly sit, but she wouldn't even dare sit beside someone. She remained frozen once again, anxiety written all over her face. However, as her look was lost, focusing on nothing in particular, she saw someone from the corner of her eye waving at her from the back of the room, who then patted the empty spot right next to them. Mai took a closer look at the kid. It was a girl, a brown-haired girl with short hair and brown eyes as well. The girl smiled kindly at her, nodding as if to tell her it was alright for Mai to sit next to her, as Mai wasn't really convinced. So she made her way towards the girl quickly anyway and sat swiftly as well. The girl turned to face Mai and looked at her with very soft eyes, as if to reassure her. As for Mai, she sat quietly without moving, feeling totally out of place. Now that she thought about it, she didn't even have any stuff to study, which made her feel even more embarrassed if that was even possible. What a freak. Hello, my name is Rin. Nohara Rin. The girl introduced herself in a very soft and polite tone. Mai looked at her, still embarrassed and a bit surprised, as Rin was still smiling softly at her. She hesitated to introduce herself since it had already been done somehow in a rather unpleasant and brutal way. I'm Mai, Kato Mai, she simply said fastly. Rin grinned big at her, closing her eyes. It's really nice to meet you, Mai. I hope you will like it here among us, Rin said, still very softly and warmly. You could feel she really meant what she said, so much so Mai was still surprised. She didn't expect that at all. Yet, she had to admit it felt nice to be spoken to this way. Just as if she were an average girl. She liked that, though she felt still shy. She hoped the girl wouldn't hate her for that. So she guessed she had to make an effort at least to be nice. Thank you. It's a pleasure for me too, she managed to reply in her angelic voice, which made Rin grin again, even bitter this time. Okay, now that you guys have introduced to each other, could we please go back to what I was saying? The teacher demanded, now annoyed. Actually, he didn't really care whether that girl was related to the Shodai Hokage or the Sandaime or anyone else. For him, it was another student, and he didn't intend to make her favors just because of her special status, far from it. It's just that he knew he would be in big trouble if something were to happen to the girl. That's why he had been so afraid in front of the Hokage, but especially because he feared the Hokage somehow. Mai blushed again heavily. For the girl who didn't want to draw even more the attention on her, she had failed miserably. Rin turned to face the teacher again, a small giggle escaping her lips as she noticed how red Mai's cheeks had become. Mai felt really ill at ease still, despite Rin's kindness and warmth. She could feel everyone's eyes still on her, except Rin's of course, the kids not hesitating to turn around slightly to have a better look at her face, in spite of the teacher's warnings. She stared at her lap, hoping they would get tired soon to stare at her, but apparently they didn't. Mai's heavy blush didn't fade away. She tried to look away, hoping it would make them stop, but as she turned her head on her left, she made eye contact with the guy sitting in the other row just next to her, a very short space separating them. She looked away from him swiftly and looked down again. The guy looked at her with a bored look. However, he was as much intrigued as the rest of the class, though he wouldn't show it. As the teacher had continued to talk about whatever he had been talking before Mai's arrival, not even bothering to begin again for Mai, someone suddenly appeared in the classroom in a flash, stopping near where the teacher was standing, as they needed to catch their breath. Of course, it caught Mai's attention as well as all the others. She took a closer look at the person. It was a kid their age, a boy with short and spiky black raven hair and black onyx eyes who was wearing orange goggles. Right now, Mai was more than thankful to the boy and the camis themselves. She felt so relieved that she let out a loud sigh, which Rin didn't notice to her greater relief. The others didn't either. They had all turned their attention on the boy in the blink of an eye, except for one boy. The one who was next to Mai, in the other row. He was still staring intently at Mai with his bored look. Mai didn't even notice. Most of the students then began making fun of him as the teacher was scolding him for being late for what seemed to be the 100th time already. Rin was staring at him with a sad look and sympathetic eyes while Mai stared at him thankfully. Now she would be able to really focus on what the teacher would say. The raven-haired boy sighed quietly. He looked for a place where he could sit and saw there was an empty seat near Rin. He immediately went there. Mai, who saw him coming, instinctively stood up in order for him to sit next to Rin, as if she had guessed he wanted to be by her side. The boy sat directly next to Rin, not even having acknowledged Mai's presence in the least. Mai didn't know if she must have felt hurt or angry or even shocked or relieved that someone other than Rin didn't care about who she was. Yet, she remembered that he didn't know her real identity unlike all the others. In the end, she chose not to give it any importance at all and just tried to focus on the lesson now. However, out of curiosity and above all to make sure she wasn't the center of attention anymore, she looked in front of her. All the students were now focused on what the teacher was saying. She looked on her right at Rin and the other boy. Rin was focused on the teacher as well while the raven-haired boy was staring at Rin intently. She then looked on her left. The boy that had been staring at her with a somewhat bored look was now focused on the teacher too. She sighed again in relief quietly and now focused on the lesson attentively. The morning had passed quickly, at least for Mai. She had found what the teacher had said quite interesting and wished to learn more now. He had been talking about the different ninja techniques and chakra natures. For now it was only theory, but they were to begin practice in the next few weeks to come. And Mai couldn't wait. Just as she had loved medical ninjutsu when she had first tried it, she was already sure she would love that. It was just an evidence to her, like a sort of revelation. And also from what the teacher had said, they all had to take a final test in order to graduate from the academy, to become a genin, that is. Mai indeed had learned that there were several ninja ranks: genin, chunin, jonin, and after even specialized branches for jonin, much to her great delight and excitement. She knew it would not be easy and that she would have to work very hard. But she was determined to succeed and become the best in her class. And to be sure she planned on asking Jiraiya to help her train, as she had never done that ever before. It was now lunchtime, but to Mai's great regret she had forgotten to take some food away to eat. She had been so stressed about going to the academy that she hadn't even thought about it once. And of course Jiraiya hadn't prepared anything for her, not that she could blame him anyway. Usually, her mother would always be there to make her food, though she had to admit it wasn't that good, but she still ate it. Yes, her mother was definitely not an expert in the art of cuisine, but neither was she after all. So, she told herself she would have to learn very quickly to make her own food from now on, because even if Jiraiya was there, he couldn't do it all the time. Plus, he probably wasn't an expert either as regards cuisine, but what she had eaten that morning was really good though, at least better than her mother's cooking. Once the class had been over, she had exited swiftly so that she could avoid the others' attention. Even if Rin had been nice to her, it didn't mean anything. Yes, it's not as if they were friends or anything. Mai guessed that it was just Rin's nature to be kind, and so she didn't even try to talk further to her. Mai was now sitting on the ground, leaning against a wall at the back of the academy in total isolation so that no one could see her or find her. She was staring at the blue cloudless sky when suddenly she could hear her name being called, to her great surprise. Mai immediately recognized the voice. It was Rin's voice. "Here you are, we've been looking for you. We thought you had run away or something," Rin said cheerfully and somehow relieved. Mai slightly turned in the direction of the voice as Rin approached until she was right before Mai. That's when Mai noticed she wasn't alone. The raven-haired boy who had been late was by her side, which explained why Rin had used "we" instead of "I." In fact, she wasn't even surprised since the two of them seemed to be very close. Anyway, she didn't feel like staying with other kids right now, she just needed to think on her own. She, who wished so much to make friends, had been so used to being alone that now she didn't even dare approach or talking to kids out of fear to be rejected or say something wrong. How sad. Mai didn't reply as it was to be expected and just stayed still, knees hugging her chest tight. I'm sorry about the others this morning. They didn't mean to make you feel ill at ease. It's just that it was so unexpected that they couldn't help but wonder and be curious. But don't worry, they are really nice. Come on, I'm going to introduce you to everyone. Rin said, a bit embarrassed at first, but then in a soft and reassuring tone. Oh no, Mai couldn't. It was the last thing she wanted to do. However, she couldn't refuse and just tell her to go away, first because she did want to make real friends and second because it would just be too rude and she wasn't that kind of girl. And even if she declined politely, she didn't want to make Rin upset. She seemed so happy about that. You could definitely sense it in the tone she used and her attitude. To begin with, I'm going to introduce you guys. So Mai, this is Obito, and Obito, this is Mai. Quote. The two of them remained still while observing each other silently with deadpan looks. Obito is an Uchiha and Mai is the great-granddaughter of the Shodai Hokage-sama. Rin added innocently as a way of breaking the awkward silence, not thinking once that Mai wouldn't want him to know this particular information. Rin didn't mean to do her wrong at all. She just thought it wasn't a big deal and that it was only natural. Obito knew as well. Obito and Mai were now staring at each other with awe filling their eyes. So this boy is part of the famous Uchiha clan, the former sworn enemy of the Senju clan. Our clan, Mai thought. What the hell? How? But why? Now, Obito had never been so confused in his whole life. He could definitely not believe it. He didn't even know their Shodai Hokage had had a child or a grandchild, so, a great-granddaughter? Come on Mai, I won't let you keep to yourself. Rin said, though not in a demanding tone. Not waiting for any response on Mai's part, Rin pulled Mai her way energetically, managing in the process to make Mai stand up in one go as Mai watched her do so passively, not trying to resist or push Rin away. Obito followed behind quickly, though still astonished by the sudden piece of news. The three of them then arrived at the front of the academy. Most of the kids, having noticed them coming their way, were forming a kind of circle as Rin stopped near them. The small crowd was staring and whispering about Mai, while the few others a bit further back who could still hear what they were whispering looked in their direction, still surprised and curious somehow. A small blush adorned Mai's small face. She could clearly hear what they were saying and she wished she didn't have to. She came to think that day would never end. And even when it was over, the other days would still be the same. As she realized that Rin was giving her a sympathetic look, she felt somehow reassured. She knew it was embarrassing now, but once the others got to know her better, she thought all of this would fade away little by little. So she stopped worrying. If she is the great-granddaughter of the great Shodai Hokage, she must be really strong, a random guy said, impressed. It's not because she is the great-granddaughter of the first Hokage that she will be privileged, another one said in a despising tone. Seriously? I bet she's nothing like the Shodai Hokage. Just look at her. How do you want her to be strong? Another one scoffed. And it went on, but only the negative ones stood out. Mai felt like crying. Some of them were being so mean. She hadn't done anything to deserve that. And she was no freak. Well, apparently she really was one. Rin put a comforting hand on her shoulder. But in vain. Mai couldn't take it anymore. So she just ran away in a flash without looking back or warning. Rin called after her, but Mai didn't listen. A small tear escaped her eye as she was running. She didn't know where she was running as she closed her eyes, but she couldn't care less. She just wanted to go far away from there and never go back. However, it wasn't long until Mai tripped and fell flat and hard on the ground. Mai? Mai froze. She was sure she had already heard that voice somewhere. Yes, it was that of the man introduced to Mai yesterday by Jiraiya. The man Mai had found so gorgeous. She couldn't remember his name as she hadn't paid attention at all to Jiraiya's words. Are you okay? What happened? Said man ran toward Mai and helped her stand up, worry and concern evident in his soft voice. Mai shivered under his touch and still had her eyes closed. She couldn't face him either, and he was really the last person she wanted to see right now. She wished it would have been Jiraiya instead, but he was surely busy right now. It didn't go well at the academy, did it? He asked, though he already knew the answer. Another tear welled at the corner of Mai's eyes as she began shaking slightly. She didn't feel like talking about it, especially not to him. The blonde-haired teen frowned, not because he was angry at Mai but because he had an idea of how things went. He had to do something to help her somehow. "Why don't we go in a quieter place to talk a bit?" He attempted, as he was still kneeling. Mai didn't say anything once again. Now she could feel small tears streaming down her face. She just let them roll down freely. At that point, she didn't care anymore if someone witnessed her crying. "Oh no, please Mai, don't cry," Minato said, even more worried, beginning to slightly panic. He put one of his hands on her cheek and caressed it lightly as he tried to wipe her tears away. Mai didn't even flinch. She was much too mesmerized by his touch to think or do something. They stayed like that for a little while as Mai managed to calm down thanks to Minato's action. It was so soothing that her tears had stopped falling. "Come on," Minato said softly, almost whispering. Mai and Minato were now sitting on a bench which faced the Hokage's monument. Now that Mai could clearly see it, she found it even more awesome and impressive. She wondered how someone could have done that. The man who had done it was for sure awesome as well, she told herself. Minato smiled at her lovingly, having noticed how she was impressed by it. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Mai snapped out of her thoughts at the soft voice. She felt so much insecurity with him. Yet, at the same time she was feeling really shy, even more than with other people because it was him. Mai nodded quietly and smiled shyly, her gaze still focused on the faces carved in the stone. "You know I have the dream to become Hokage myself one day," Minato said softly yet confidently. Mai turned to him, eyes shining with wonder. He was still very young to be Hokage, nevertheless he largely had the maturity and skills required to become one, which Mai ignored. Mai smiled brightly at him. She had a feeling that he would eventually achieve his dreams sooner or later. Minato was a bit taken aback somehow. It was the first time he had seen her smile. She was even cuter when she smiled. "What about you? Do you have a dream for the future?" Mai thought about it, putting on her thinking face. Her dream, or rather her dreams for now, were mainly to help people thanks to her medical ninjutsu, and also to become the best shinobi ever. Even though she was only 5 years old, she was also very mature for her age. "I want to help save people with my medical ninjutsu and become the best leaf shinobi," Mai managed to say shyly and very quietly, so much so Minato barely heard. He was sheerly impressed. He never thought Mai had already learned medical ninjutsu. But it was a very good thing. And given her blood and background, he was sure she would become a great kunoichi. "And wouldn't you like to become Hokage too?" Mai jumped a bit. She thought it was unreachable. Why, she wasn't a great man like the other Hokage. "You know the purpose of the Hokage is to protect the villagers and watch over them, and he is the strongest shinobi of the village. Well, at least he is supposed to. And your medical ninjutsu would be a real plus as a Hokage." Wait, he couldn't be speaking seriously. Or could he? Mai had never thought about it. Could she really succeed to become Hokage one day? She was still skeptical though. Minato laughed softly, seeing her puzzled face. He was sure she could become Hokage as well. "Sorry, I didn't mean to make you confused. Don't worry, you still have plenty of time to think about it. Anyway, to become the best kunoichi you should go back to the academy first, don't you think?" Minato stated, trying to tackle Mai's tricky issue tactfully. Mai looked back at him but remained silent. She had managed to totally forget what had happened this morning and minutes ago. How incredible. She then stared down at the ground, ashamed of her attitude. Ashamed of having been so weak in front of kids her age. And especially in front of him. If she wanted to become the best ninja, she couldn't allow herself to be weak. After all, no shinobi was supposed to be weak, let alone the Hokage, she figured out. "Listen, whatever you have to face, you have to stay strong, for you and the others who love you and rely on you. You will always have to face difficult times as a shinobi, and you'll always have to stay strong. To endure," Minato finished gravely. As he spoke those words, the image of Jiraiya came to Mai's mind. This is exactly what her father had told her. And they were both right. She would no longer act like a weakling now. She would have to put her shyness and fear away from now on, otherwise she would never become the best in anything. Or ever a shinobi at all. Plus, her father and mother would surely hate the thought of having a lame and weak daughter. She couldn't disappoint them. Mai stood up, determination written all over her angelic face, ready to face them. Minato stood up as well, smiling at her softly. He was happy he could help her feel better. "I'll see you soon then, Mai," Said girl turned to face him, but to her great surprise the young man was no longer there. It is so awesome. She wanted to learn how to do that too. That man is so cool. Mai was now back at the academy, planning to go straight into the building, not caring about the other kids' looks and whispers anymore. Mai, as strong as her determination was, she nonetheless stopped right in her tracks, recognizing Rin's voice. She looked in Rin's direction as said girl ran in her direction while the small group of kids who were with her followed after her. I'm so glad you're back. I really thought you wouldn't. Look, we're really sorry for earlier and I hope you're not mad at us. Rin said apologetically. Mai's determination began somehow faltering at Rin's voice, being slowly replaced by softness, which made stand out her delicate features even more. Of course she wasn't mad at them. She couldn't. I'm not. And it's okay, she replied softly, hoping Rin would stop feeling guilty. Rin smiled at her softly, relieved. She was really happy and hoped they could become friends. Great, time for the introductions then. Rin said cheerfully. So everybody, as you already know, this is Mai. Mai, you already know Obito. Rin said, gesturing at said boy. So now here is Anko, Shizune, Kurenai, Genma, Ebisu, Ibiki, and… Rin stopped puzzled, obviously looking for someone as she turned around. And that boy over there is Kakashi. Rin proceeded, a light blush forming on her face. Mai recognized him. It was the boy who had been sitting in the row right next to her and staring at her with a bored look. Hey, I'm Asuma, it's nice to meet you. Just for you to know, I am the son of the third Hokage. So you see, you won't feel left out, we're both on the same boat, said Kid, introduced himself directly in a cool tone. So that was him. He seemed to be just like what his father had described him, which made Mai smile softly. She felt completely reassured now. At least there were two people who didn't judge her for who she was and who were really nice and open to her. You. A boy suddenly approached her, so fast that it made Mai flinch. His face was now only inches away from Mai as fear began overwhelming her. It's a real honor to meet the great-granddaughter of such a great and legendary man as the Shodai Hokage. I guess I could consider you as a potential rival now. I'd really be honored to fight you, you know. The guy continued as Mai was even more freaking out. I am Meta Guy, the best taijutsu fighter in the whole village of Konoha. Guy took a few steps backwards, leaving Mai some space to breathe. Sweat drops could be seen on her forehead and temples. Rin let out a small giggle as she was witnessing the scene. Suddenly Obito's stomach rumbled, making him scratch the nape of his neck awkwardly while he laughed nervously. Sorry about that. Rin looked at him with concern. Did you eat it all this morning, Obito? Well, I didn't really have time since I was already late, you know. Rin gave him a disapproving look as if she were his big sister. My sweat dropped. It seemed it wasn't the first time this had happened. Well, now, what about we go eat something before the lesson starts again? I bet you're hungry as well, Mai. Mai blinked at her blankly as Rin took hold of both Obito's and Mai's wrists, pulling them wherever she was thinking of. Mai, Rin and Obito were now at a dango shop, which made Mai really happy actually. She had always been fond of sweets, a thing her mother wasn't really happy about, because it wasn't healthy. Though Mai had no money to pay her food, Rin had insisted on inviting Obito and Mai, which was very embarrassing for Mai. She thought it normal to pay her own food. Well, though technically she would pay it with her parents' money, but still. It was a question of principle. Don't worry, Mai, it's not a big deal. That's what friends are made for. Friends? Mai murmured, slightly confused. Were they really friends? They hardly knew each other. Rin nodded enthusiastically while humming, closing her eyes and smiling softly. Mai was so touched. She finally had a real friend. She was feeling so happy. Actually, that day wasn't that bad. So have you had time to visit the whole village? Rin asked her happily. No, not yet. Great. What about we go take a tour of the village after class this evening so that I can show you all the important and best places? Mai considered Rin's proposition. Why not? It would be really nice after all to hang out with her new friend. Sure. Rin gave her a warm smile. Hey, I'll be coming too. I would love to show her the village too, you know. Obito, who had felt so out of place, finally joined the conversation, jumping at the chance to spend some time with Rin. Even if they weren't alone, it was still better than nothing. Mai blinked blankly. Obviously the guy definitely didn't give a damn about her. As for Rin, she was extremely happy. Oh, that's so kind of you, Obito. You are more than welcome to join us. Mai's features somehow softened at Rin's joy and Obito's excitement, a warm feeling filling her being. It felt so good. The afternoon class was finally over. Mai was still with Obito and Rin, ready for the tour they had planned at lunch. As they were exiting the academy, Mai noticed Jiraiya apparently waiting for her, leaning against a tree, his eyes closed and arms crossed. She made her way towards him as Obito and Rin stopped to wait for her. "Tsunade?" Jiraiya started, opening his eyes before staring at her in disbelief. So that's why she had never asked information about her real father. The white-haired Sannin closed his eyes again and held back a sigh. Sooner or later he would have to tell her the truth. But for now, he let her believe what she wanted to believe. "How is it?" he asked her. Mai smiled brightly at him. "All in all, it was nice. I love it. The lesson was so great. I can't wait to become a shinobi for real," Mai said, overly excited. Jiraiya smirked. That was a very good piece of news. He could now begin to show her the basics of ninjutsu, taijutsu and other things necessary to master. "Could you begin to help me train tonight?" Mai asked hopefully. "Sure, let's get to it now, the sooner the better." "Well, in fact, I had planned to visit the village in his entirety with friends. So I wondered if we could begin once I come back?" Mai uttered sheepishly. "That's fine with me, just don't get back too late. Anyway, we'll just begin to see the basics so it won't be that long for today. It'll get harder and much more serious as the days pass by." Mai smiled even more brightly. She was so excited about it. "See you then," Mai shouted as she was running back to where Rin and Obito were standing, waiting for her patiently. Well, at least Rin was. She definitely loved Konoha. Half a week had already passed since Mai's arrival in Konoha. Things at the academy were going rather well and she had begun light training with Jiraiya since the man didn't want her to be overwhelmed. It was still brand new to her after all. For now, they had mainly practiced taijutsu and shuriken throw as well as learning how to use a kunai. But they haven't worked on ninjutsu or genjutsu yet. Jiraiya wasn't even sure Mai knew what genjutsu was, though she surely knew what ninjutsu is since she already had a few notions in medical ninjutsu. The thing is, he couldn't help her practice her medical ninjutsu since he wasn't a medic, so she would have to manage on her own with books. Or maybe ask for some help from someone specialized in this. The Sannin really hoped Tsunade would come back soon. However, the man had no illusions. He knew it was going to be a very long wait for Mai. Today was a day off, which meant Mai had the whole day for her to continue training. She felt so excited and eager. She loved training, especially since it was with Jiraiya. She wasn't that bad at taijutsu for a beginner. And it was okay with the use of shurikens and kunais, although it was far from being perfect as of now. And she also had to work on her speed skills and reflexes somehow. But otherwise, that was alright. Anyway, it was only the beginning, that's what the young girl kept repeating herself. Mai was more than ready to go training as she was waiting for Jiraiya to come back. The man had told her he had just one thing to do before when she had met him after waking up. She was used to waking up early. She didn't like sleeping in. She thought the world was so beautiful and full of wonders that sleeping while you could do so many things was really a waste of time. Not that she was a hyperactive child. Well, you could say she almost was. Mai was really getting impatient now. She hated waiting. What can take him so long? However, just as she was going to go outside to watch out for him, the Sannin appeared inside right in front of her. But Mai noticed he wasn't alone. Of course, she recognized the other person instantly. It was her father's friend, the young blonde-haired man. What is he doing here? Mai had a bad feeling. Jiraiya couldn't have planned to cancel training, or could he have? Jiraiya had a very serious look plastered on his face while Minato seemed to be a bit anxious. Mai stared back at the Sannin with apprehension and disillusion in her dark green eyes. "We won't train today, will we?" she inquired quietly, now looking down. "Sorry little Mai, but I can't train you today. I have very important stuff to do, so I will be away from the village. Just for today." Quote, "But Minato will be here to train you instead. And you'll see by yourself, he's as good as me for this kind of stuff. Or rather, should I say, even better than I am. So don't worry." Quote, Mai was astonished yet disappointed. She preferred to train with Jiraiya, so if he couldn't, she'd rather not train at all. At least, she would have plenty of spare time to study, so it would be nice. Though not as nice as training. And why should it be him anyway? Of course, she was upset not because she disliked the blonde-haired teen. It was quite the opposite actually. but because Jiraiya waited the last minute to tell her that. She felt a bit hurt at the same time. What could Jiraiya have to do more important than training with her? Away from the village furthermore. That's when a sort of revelation came to her mind. Maybe he was going to go find her mother to convince her to go back to Konoha so that they would be all together like a real family and would help her train. Mai felt a sudden surge of happiness and wonder overwhelming her. It would be so great if that's what Jiraiya had in mind. No, it had to be that. And he surely had planned to make her the surprise. So she didn't say or asked him anything in order to ruin everything, though it was hard for her not to show how she felt about it. "Oh please sensei. I'm certainly not better than you," Minato said sheepishly. "Oh come on, don't be so modest Minato. You'll be an excellent sensei for Mai." Quote. The blonde-haired young man blushed slightly while Mai was somehow anxious. So that guy was her father's student. She hoped the training session would go fine. This time, she was really under pressure. She wouldn't be lame in front of him. She didn't want to make a laughing stock of herself. Even if she had just begun, she still had her pride. It wouldn't be the same as training with her father, of course. With Jiraiya she didn't mind if she did something bad or anything, but with him it was a totally different story. She was actually afraid of doing something wrong, of appearing weak comparing to him, and of many other similar things. Though he appeared really nice and cool in training, he would surely have a completely different attitude. Tough and demanding. Mai didn't even know why she was thinking that at all. Assuming things about people was really not a good thing to do, from what her mother had told her, and she was aware of it, but she just couldn't help it. But again, she was still a 5-year-old child. "Shall we go to the training ground then if you're ready, Mai?" Minato suggested softly and a bit nervously. Though he was very skilled and gifted as a shinobi, he was still young and inexperienced as a sensei. It would be his first time doing this, and he really hoped things would be alright. Mai glanced at him before nodding quietly, indicating she was ready to go. Minato gave Mai a faint smile. "Off we go then." Quote. Mai and Minato were now sitting on the training ground. Minato had agreed with Jiraiya to begin from now on to teach Mai some ninjutsu, at least the basics of it. So he preferred to begin with some explanations to make sure she would not be lost. "So before doing anything we should first talk about chakra nature. Have you ever heard about it?" Quote. Mai thought about it. Of course, she had an idea about what chakra was since it was necessary to medical ninjutsu, but except her knowledge didn't really go any further. Mai gave him a quizzical look. "Well, I don't know if your sensei at the academy told you about that since you arrived while the classes had already begun, so I'm going to explain as clearly as possible. But please tell me if there is something you don't get, okay?" Quote. Mai simply nodded slowly. "Well, I guess you already know what chakra is. And so you know that there are 5 chakra elemental natures, right?" Quote. Something clicked in Mai's mind at that precise moment. 5. Just like the 5 villages which have their own natural element. Fire, water, earth, lightning, and wind. Mai replied almost mechanically and solemnly as she had her eyes focused on the ground while thinking. "Yes, that's right. Good thing you know that already." Quote. Then basically in order to create a technique, whether it be your own or one that already exists, you need to concentrate and manipulate your own nature chakra. And you also need to make hand signs, otherwise it won't work. That's what ninjutsu is about, you see. Quote. Mai was deep in thought again. "But how do you know about your chakra nature?" Mai asked quizzically. "Well, there is a very simple to know it. Look, if you take a mere leaf, this leaf is going to help you determine your chakra nature instantly." Quote. Minato then took out a small leaf, holding it in front of Mai. "If it burns, then it's fire. If it gets wet, then it's water. If it crumbles, then it's earth. If it's crumpled, then it's lightning. And finally if it splits in half, then it's wind." Quote. He then gave the leaf to Mai, who took it and held it firmly right in front of her just like Minato had done. She waited for a few seconds for something to happen, staring intently at the leaf. Then it eventually happened. The leaf became wet. Mai was somehow stupefied. So her chakra nature was water. Minato seemed to be a bit puzzled as well. Quote. "Well, that's a bit of a problem," Minato said, not really knowing what to do as he was staring at the wet leaf. "I won't be able to show you or even teach you any water jutsus since this is not my affinity." Quote. "Yet, I know someone who could potentially help you with that. Come on, let's go see if they are available right now," Minato suggested merrily. "Who?" Mai asked shyly. "You'll see," Minato said, smiling softly. B. But what is your chakra nature? She continued. It's fire. Quote. Mai was in deep thought again. So it means I won't be able to use it or any other nature? Quote. Well, in fact, it is possible to master several chakra nature in addition to your own affinity, but you have to be very skilled and work very hard on it. Few shinobis, in general, are able to do this, unless they are very talented. And even fewer of them are able to master all 5 natures. Actually, it is very rare. Only 3 shinobis in the village were able to master them all. But I guess you know who I am talking about. Quote. Of course, Mai did. The 3 Hokage. Quote. Minato nodded, smiling. So that means you'll be able to master them all as well when you become Hokage? Quote. Well, I'm far from mastering them all for now, he replied, laughing a bit awkwardly. I only mastered 2 of them, that is fire and wind. But I'm currently working on mastering lightning as well. Quote. Mai nodded slowly in awe. It was going to be a real challenge for her. But as hard as it seemed, she somehow felt determined to succeed and stand out from shinobis of her class and standard shinobis in general, even if it had to take her years. The pressure it would put on her small shoulders made her feel even more excited, and she liked that feeling for some unknown reason to her. If it meant to be the best shinobi, then she would succeed at all costs. Minato knocked at the door of the Hokage's office as Mai stood next to him. Of course, she should have known that the only person here who could help her was the Hokage, since he knew all chakra natures and was busy most of the time with important matters. They entered the room quietly as the Hokage was sitting at his desk with piles of papers on it. Sorry to bother you, Hokage-sama, but there is something I would like to ask you. Quote. About Mai's training, I suppose? The Hokage asked solemnly. Yes, wait, how did you guess? Quote. The Hokage smirked lightly. Intuition, you know. Anyway, to answer your question, I can help you naturally. Quote. Oh really? I mean, I don't want to disturb you if you are busy. Quote. The Hokage smiled softly at Minato's obvious sheepishness while Mai observed quietly the 2 of them talk with interest. No, don't you worry about that. Come on, let's start now. Quote. So what is your chakra nature, Mai? The Hokage asked curiously. Water, she replied softly. I see. Quote. Is this your chakra nature too? Quote. The Hokage laughed softly as Mai's curiosity. No, mine is fire. Quote. Just like Minato. She wondered if her father's and mother's was fire too. Anyway, she would ask them tonight. And what was that of the other Hokages? Quote. Well, for the Shodai-sama it was a bit particular, but for the Nidaime-sama it was water, just like you. Quote. Mai lifted one brow. Why? Quote. The Hokage sighed softly before explaining. Because he mastered wood release, which is actually a mix of both water and earth natures, and he was the only one in his clan to have ever succeeded to master it. Quote. Mai was speechless once again. So that meant not even her mother or her grandparents had succeeded if that wood release thing was specific to their clan. Is that so because he was the Hokage? Or rather, the right question should be, is it because he was the only one to master it that he became Hokage? Of course not. Because even his own brother didn't succeed in mastering it either. How weird, Mai thought. Oh god, that man had really something special. So that means I'll never be able to master it either? This is what we call a Kekkei Genkei. The Hokage proceeded after a short pause. That is to say, an ability which is specific to one clan. So as I told you, for the Senju it's Mokuton, but that's not the only one, of course, far from it. Have you already heard about the Uchiha clan? Quote. Mai nodded. Oh very well. Their Kekkei Genkei is called the Sharingan, but it has nothing to do with chakra nature. In fact, it's what we call more specifically a dojutsu, that is a powerful visual ability. The Hyuga clan has one as well, similar to that of the Uchiha clan, which is called Byakugan. Quote. To say that Mai was impressed by this revelation was clearly an understatement. How could she have been ignorant of so many things about the world in which she was living in? Anyway, I'm not going to explain everything in details, you'll see that later more thoroughly. As of now, let's focus on your own nature chakra and training. Quote. That's when Mai realized something. As she knew, each elemental nation had its own nature, and for Konoha it was fire. But shouldn't we all have a fire chakra nature since we are in the fire country? Quote. The Hokage looked at her softly. She was much cuter than her mother when she was her age, with her curious way. You have a point there. Indeed, logically those who are experts in the field of water release are from Kirigakure, of course. But that won't prevent you from mastering it as well as they do, you see. Quote, but however, we Sarutobi are known to be experts in fire jutsus just like the Uchihas. Quote, Uchihas? So that boy Obito has a fire chakra nature, nay? That means Asuma has a fire chakra nature as well. Interesting. Look, I'm going to show you an interesting, though it is rather hard to master. It's just to show you an example of water jutsu. Watch carefully. Quote, the Hokage made some hand signs that Mai couldn't recognize very quickly, and all of a sudden a giant water dragon appeared which made Mai flinch. It was totally scary. Suddenly again she felt a hand on her shoulder which made her jump. But she didn't even dare turn her head to see who it was since she already knew. She blushed while still staring at that huge dragon. It looked so real. Where did it even come from? There is no source of water whatsoever nearby. Then the dragon disappeared as fast as it had appeared, leaving Mai even more puzzled. Would she really be able to manage to perform such a jutsu one day? This was already a real challenge for her. Impressive, isn't it? Minato smiled softly at Mai. Mai gulped uneasily, incomprehension and frustration hardening her usually soft features. The Hokage, seeming to have understood what bothered her, answered her questions. Normally you have to use water surrounding you to perform this jutsu. However, according to your level and skills you can make one without even needing water, you see. But don't worry, I'm sure you will be able to master it in no time if you work hard. The Hokage said reassuringly, a confident tone in his voice. Determination and confidence overtook Mai thanks to the Hokage's words. Now let's work on more basic justice, shall we? Quote, Mai nodded enthusiastically, her small body twitching in anticipation. She would master water just as perfectly. Even better than the Nidaime. Training was finally over. It had lasted all day long, only with small breaks in between, and Mai was exhausted. But it was worth it. The Sandaime had showed her already so many things. She was so happy. Mai was now home and stayed in the living room waiting for her father and mother to come back, as she noticed they weren't there yet. She wondered if others in her class had a water affinity as well. She would have to ask. Mai was hungry now. Yet, just as she got up from the floor to make herself something to eat, she heard the door swipe open. She turned around only to see the white-haired man entering quietly the room, careful to close the door right after. Mai's expectant and hopeful gaze dropped suddenly. Why is Ka-san not here? She was now face to face with him, staring at him with disbelieving eyes. Knowing, or rather assumed, that her mother would be back tonight had motivated her even more for the training. She had been very impatient to tell her about everything she had learned so far, but also she had remembered that she intended to ask her why her mother had never talked to her about the village, the academy, or shinobis in general, and more specifically her own family, and also why she had left her dad and the village, etc. She deserved to have answers to her questions after all. But apparently, it would not be for today. How was training today? Jiraiya asked carefully, having noticed Mai's disappointment, though he ignored the real reason behind it. Mai didn't feel like replying now. All her previous excitement and anticipation had now faded away in a flash. However, she needed to know. Where is Ka-san? She inquired silently. Jiraiya gave her a questioning look, which was very soon replaced by a sympathetic one as he understood why she was actually disappointed. He held back a sigh and closed his eyes momentarily. In all honesty, I have no idea when she is going to be back. But I don't think it will be soon. Quote, but you saw her today, didn't you? Quote, listen, I don't know why you even imagined I was away in order to see her, but that's not the case. I was away for a totally different matter, you see. Quote, I'm sorry to have let you have false hopes, but she promised to come back anyway, and she will stick to her word, believe me. Quote, Mai was torn between a feeling of anger and pain. She had to let it all out or else she would break down. But why would she leave her family in the first place? Mai said dangerously low, so much so it almost sounded like a menace, as a shadow was now covering her beautiful bright eyes. Jiraiya almost flinched. He had never seen the child like that before. Mai didn't definitely inherited that trait of character from her father. That's when he registered what Mai had just said. He couldn't hide the truth from her any long. Even though he was without any doubt not the appropriate person to tell her, and in spite of Tsunade's warnings. Mai couldn't mistake him any longer as her father. Mai, listen carefully. There's something very important you need to know, Jiraiya stated extremely solemnly. He sat on the floor as Mai snapped out of her angered state and watched him with interest, sitting as well, her eyes remaining focused on the Sanin all along. Sorry to tell you this, but unlike what you think, I am not your father. Quote. A steel silence followed that revelation. Jiraiya hesitated for a while before finally continuing. Your real father left us. Quote. He knew that Mai wouldn't get the euphemism, but for God's sake he just couldn't tell the child that her father died at war. Let alone that he had never known about her existence. Not to a 5-year-old child. Mai felt bad, like really bad. But at the same time she was overwhelmed with a mix of emotions, some of which were unknown to her. She couldn't think anymore. She stayed in a state of utter shock for a while before being able to speak again. But why would he do that? Mai asked, unsure, afraid of the answer she would receive. Jiraiya was stuck now and he was well aware it was the late to back off. But he couldn't lie to Mai. So instead he decided to change the topic slightly. You know that Shizune girl who is in the same class as you. She is actually your only cousin because your father had siblings. Quote. Mai's shock was much greater now, if that was even possible. She came to wonder how they could be related since the two didn't look alike at all. But if her father had siblings, did that mean that they had left too? But maybe Shizune had still one parent left just like her. She would have to ask her directly tomorrow at the academy. Mai abruptly stood up. She thought it pointless to ask any more questions. At least for now. Exhaustion and shock as well as frustration were taking the best of her. She thus left quietly to go to sleep, taking for granted that Jiraiya would understand how she was feeling and her intentions as well. She had lost all her appetite by now anyway. Jiraiya watched her moving away from him worriedly. He hoped she would take it all as best she could and that she wasn't angry at all of them. Maybe it was too much for her and she needed to sleep on it. The man decided he would go see her later in the evening. If she hadn't sneaked out by the time he would come. Mai had been trying to sleep for the last couple of hours but it was no use. Numerous thoughts and questions were overwhelming her. She wished tomorrow could arrive fast but it seemed to her that time had stopped. Suddenly she could hear her door being opened. Even if she didn't see him she knew it was Jiraiya. Who else could have it been anyway? Jiraiya was secretly relieved that Mai hadn't run away. He didn't want to stalk her in any way. The man went to sit right next to Mai on the edge of her futon without a word. You know, even if I am not your father I'll always be there for you. And if you ever feel lonely, we will always be here to comfort you. You'll never be alone. The village, your family will never, ever let you down. Always remember this. Quote. For some reason, Jiraiya's warming words soothed Mai instantly, enabling her to drift off to sleep peacefully. She felt relieved. Jiraiya stroked her silky hair softly as he was staring at her sleeping form tenderly. Good night, little Mai. Quote. Mai had arrived earlier than usual at the academy. She needed to have a walk and take some fresh air to clear her thoughts. She was wondering what kind of man her father could have been and especially what he looked like. It was haunting her. Even if yesterday evening Jiraiya's words had soothed her and enabled to go to sleep, she couldn't help but wonder many things about him. And now she was wondering whether she looked more like him or more like her mother. Actually, she couldn't really tell whether she resembled her mother or not. It was pretty hard for her to decide even though normally it should have been easy. Perhaps she was afraid of being too subjective. As she was sitting all on her own, leaning in the shade of a huge tree, an idea came to her mind. Not the brightest idea she could have had, but still it was an idea. She would have to go look for her father. Even if he had chosen deliberately to leave the village, it didn't matter. And if she did find him, things would finally be the way they should be. Yes, when she found him she would convince him to come back. He couldn't reject his own daughter after seeing her, right? However, she couldn't just leave and begin her search now. She had to attend the academy, and if their sensei noticed she wasn't there today he would for sure tell the Hokage and Jiraiya, and then her plans would fail. Moreover, she had to talk to Shizune and get to know her better before going anywhere. Maybe she could talk about her plan of bringing her father back to Konoha to Shizune so that the raven-haired girl could somehow help her. Yeah, maybe it wasn't so bad an idea. All of a sudden, anyway, Mai was snapped out of her thoughts when she heard a familiar voice shouting her name. She raised her head and spotted Rin waving at her enthusiastically before running towards her. It was still quite early, so Mai wondered why Rin was already here. Obviously, she didn't need a walk as Mai did. Hey, how long have you been here? You really are a morning person, aren't you? She said, her happy self seeming to be excited more than ever. Mai blinked thoughtfully at her. She couldn't tell her what she had discovered yesterday. Or maybe she should. Isn't it what friends are made for? Yet, she wasn't feeling bold enough to tell her. It was as if some kind of external repulsive force was preventing her from telling Rin about it. Maybe she would. Later. I am indeed. I've always been like this so far as I can remember. But what about you? Why are you here so early? Mai replied, trying to sound natural as best she could manage. Rin beamed at her, as if the brown-haired girl had received the best piece of news ever. Said girl giggled slightly. Well, today is the day we really begin practice after all these theoretical lessons. I'm so excited. Quote. Mai almost gasped in realization. She had been so caught up in thinking about training and more recently about what Jiraiya had told her that she had forgotten this. And she couldn't deny she was very excited about it too now. Anyway, she hid it because she wasn't really used to showing her emotions, though Rin was her friend. It would take time, she guessed. However, in less than a minute she just couldn't hold back her excitement any longer. Today was going to be a crucial day. She would finally be able to show everyone what she was capable of. That's so cool, Mai managed to say happily, her face brightened up completely without jumping up and down, her fists curled up in balls in anticipation. Well, it seems she guessed wrong. Rin smiled at her brightly as well, closing her eyes. It made her even happier to be able to share her excitement with someone else. Besides, I'll be able to see Kakashi in action. I can't wait to see how skilled he is. Quote. This particular statement cooled down Mai's excitement completely. She remained silent as Rin was still in her own bubble of happiness. Then, the two girls continued chatting until the other kids began showing up. Well, or rather Rin was doing most of the talking as Mai had gone back to thinking about her plan and how she could sneak out of the village without being noticed by anybody. She couldn't be found before succeeding what she aimed for. That's why leaving during nighttime was her best option. When all the students had finally arrived, Mai focused all her undivided attention on Shizune, who was making her way towards the entrance. Rin, noticing it, inquired her about it in order to quench her curiosity. Is there nothing wrong with Shizune? Rin asked casually yet somehow worried. Mai turned her attention to the brunette. No, not at all. It's just that I learned yesterday that she was in fact my cousin. Quote. Though Mai didn't feel she could talk about her father, she could still tell Rin that. Rin seemed to be utterly surprised, which was highly understandable. Ooh, does that mean Shizune is related to the Shodai Hokage as well? Rin asked eagerly, a new form of excitement taking over her. No, I mean only my mother is a descendant of the Shodai. My father wasn't even a Senju. And Shizune and I are related on my father's side. Quote. Rin gave Mai on those bright and warm smile she was used to giving after having taken in that new piece of information. Let's go talk to her then. Come on. Quote. Rin cheered, beginning to pull Mai by the arm but stopped when she saw the look in Mai's eyes. Or maybe you prefer going alone. I mean, I understand perfectly. I'll see you later then. Bye. Quote. With that she left waving at Mai and joined the small group who were talking about today's practice, glancing not so discreetly at Kakashi, who was reading a book on his own. As for Mai, she mustered up the courage to go talk to Shizune and walked towards her with a quick and determined pace. As soon as she reached her she called her name, which made Shizune jump somehow as she stopped walking and turned around to spot Mai. Shizune tensed slightly. She wondered why the great-granddaughter of the legendary Shodai would even want to talk to her. Mai stayed still and silent. How could she tell her they were related? Did Shizune already know this? But then, if it were the case she would have talked to her first, nay? Quote. Quote. Mai was clueless on how she should start the conversation. So the situation became rather awkward very quickly. Shizune was clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation, so she made an excuse to get out of it. Sorry, but we should get going now. The class is about to begin and I don't want to be late. She bowed quickly before entering. Mai stood there, seeming to be in a kind of daze before finally following after all the others. After all, she didn't want to be late either. One time had been already quite enough, although it hadn't been really her fault. Everyone was outside standing all around the teacher, who explained some stuff prior to begin the exercise. They had already trained, doing some shuriken throw, and now they would have to spar, two each time. Mai was eager to begin. She couldn't help but wonder who she was going to spar with. She hoped at least it wouldn't be Guy or Rin, or even that Kakashi guy. Please listen carefully everybody. These spars are not meant to be aggressive or anything or show who is the best among the whole class. They are meant to help you learn and assimilate the ninja codes of honor when you have no other choice but fight someone else, okay? Quote. The whole class nodded their heads, not wanting to be bothered by the teacher's rambling anymore. Most of them were also eager to begin. Perfect, so I'm going to choose 2 persons who will spar with each other. The first one who cannot stand up anymore will be the loser. But remember what I've just told you, okay? It doesn't mean anything. After all, it is your first, real fight, if I may say so. So no pressure, okay? Well, let's get started now. Quote. Most of the students had already sparred against one another while Mai had been watching all of them very carefully and analyzed each detail thoroughly, always keeping in mind that the least insignificant thing could somehow help her. Guy, Rin and Kakashi had already sparred. Guy against Kakashi and Guy had lost. Rin against Shizune. Anko against Kurenai. Asuma against Genma and so on. Mai wished her opponent wouldn't be too easy to fight but not too hard either. Now, quote, Mai listened attentively, filled with expectation and inner excitement. Quote. Kato Mai against Uchiha Obito. Quote. The 2 said kids stared ahead of them in space with big eyes before exchanging a quick glance. Come on, let's not waste any time, get ready now. Quote. The 2 of them went to stand in front of each other, observing each other silently and rather suspiciously somehow. Okay, so salute each other before beginning. Quote. They both made the appropriate salutations while not taking their eyes off each other for a single second as they did. Right, ready, start. Quote. The 2 others didn't move as the other students were shouting things the 2 of them didn't get. They were too busy focusing on each other, wondering who was going to make the first move. Mai waited patiently and tried to figure the Uchihas out. She had deduced from what Jiraiya and the Sandaime had told her that the Uchihas were a very powerful clan, maybe even more than the Senjus. They had the Sharingan and perhaps Obito would use it against her, who knows, she couldn't tell. That's why she would be twice as alert against him. As for Obito, he told himself he couldn't lose against a girl, especially not to her. Rin was watching him after all. What would she think of him if he lost? Everybody was always making fun of him already because they thought he was a sheer loser and also because he was always arriving late. But he was going to prove them wrong. Right here and right now. Rin was staring at them worried in silence. She didn't wish to see her 2 friends fight each other even though she knew it was nothing serious. She hoped they wouldn't get hurt unintentionally. There were still loud shouts, most of the people getting impatient as the 2 stayed still while some others stared at them expectantly. Even Kakashi, who was usually always bored, seemed to be interested in this specific fight, more than in his own. Obito, being the reckless idiot he was, finally decided to give the first blow, aiming at Mai swiftly. However, Mai was faster than him with her sharp observing skills and blocked his fist right away, to everyone's great astonishment, including Obito's, even Kakashi of course. Mai looked at him straight in the face, her eyes filled with determination. She was definitely not going to lose to an Uchiha, whoever he may be. Obito almost flinched in fear but quickly regained his composure, reminding himself that Rin was watching him. He glared at Mai as he was ready to try to give her another blow but soon realized Mai wouldn't let go of his fist, as the girl had anticipated his next move even before he had decided it. What the? Obito thought, but before he had the proper amount of time to react, Mai just sent him flying into the nearest wall in a flash. Everyone gasped at that action except Kakashi, who was still wide-eyed and speechless nonetheless. Even the sensei gasped. He definitely couldn't believe it. Shish may have been the great-granddaughter of the Shodai Hokage, but still. She was still a 5-year-old child who didn't even know what ninjutsu was or anything about the ninja world just a few days ago. He almost flinched back too but couldn't hide his fright. Now no one would ever say mean things to her or even bother her. And some of them, those who had criticized her of course, wouldn't even dare getting near her anymore. Mai wasn't even aware herself of what she had just done. It's like it was another person who did it instead of her. Which sounds really creepy. The sensei couldn't speak any longer. He was just somewhat babbling and stuttering incoherent things, or rather sounds. Right T. Let's stop for today. Quote. The teacher had dismissed all of the students right after that incident, and went immediately to the Hokage's office to inform the man about it. Obito had not quite recovered from the shock yet and was still feeling somehow dizzy. Rin had stayed by his side and was now going to take him to see a medical ninja. Mai, who had finally realized what she had done by that time, felt guilty overwhelming her. She hadn't meant things to end this way. Yes, she wanted to win, but not that way. Especially when she saw her friend like that, she couldn't stand it. So she wanted to make up for it. And even if Obito wasn't really her friend, she didn't like seeing him like that. She wanted to apologize but was afraid of both being angry at her. So she told herself that action was worthier than words. No need to. I'm going to take care of him. Quote. Mai joined the duo and began putting her hands on Obito's back to heal him, but this time the raven-haired boy did flinch out of fear, gripping Rin's shirt tightly. Mai, why did you do that? Rin asked, still worried. No, she wasn't mad at her and could never be, neither at her nor at anyone. But she needed to understand. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you in any way. It just happened and everything went so fast. But I won't do it again. Quote. Rin's features softened and she gave Mai a sympathetic look while Obito's stared at her suspiciously, doubting her sincerity somehow. However, he quickly changed his mind when Rin accepted her apologies for him. It's alright, don't worry. Just be careful next time when you two spar again, okay? Quote. Mai nodded in relief as Obito spoke. Alright, it's no big deal. Anyway, I don't need to be healed, I feel much better now. Thanks anyway. Quote. Mai was left speechless. There wasn't any anger in his voice, just stubbornness and a hint of softness. Did that mean he was forgiving her? Obviously it did, and Mai was glad he did. Super. I'm really glad there's no more misunderstanding or antipathy between you two. Let's go and enjoy the afternoon then. Rin said cheerfully, which made Mai remember that she had to talk to Shizune. Mai hopes she wouldn't be scared of her after that, so the best was to get straight to the point, she told herself. Sorry, I would have loved to, but I have something to do now. Quote. Oh, okay, no problem. We'll see you later then. Quote. Mai nodded at the two before saying bye to both Rin and Obito and then began to look for Shizune. It wasn't long before Mai spotted her and made her way towards her, but not too quickly this time, not wanting to make the situation awkward just like this morning. Shizune, I don't want to appear awkward or anything, and I hope you're not afraid of me after what I did, but I learned yesterday that we were cousins and I was wondering if you knew about it. Quote. Shizune stared at her wide-eyed, not believing what she had just heard. How was it even possible for them to be cousins? Mai explained, understanding as she read the sheer incomprehension written on her pale face. My father had siblings, and one of your parents is one of them. Quote. Shizune remained silent as she took in the information. Well, I cannot tell which one it was. I'm an orphan and I've never known who my parents were. I just know they died shortly after I was born. But I have no idea how. Quote. Mai remained speechless as she came to a realization. If her father's sibling was dead, did it mean that her father was dead too? Because as she thought of it again more carefully, he couldn't have possibly abandoned her, or her mother, or the village. Yes, that made sense now. How could she have not understood it sooner? Mai was feeling utterly distressed. That accounted for everything. Why her mother had left the village with her. Why she behaved that way. Why she never told her anything about him or the village or her family. Why she always seemed to be so sad and so out of reach. Mai felt tears threatening to fall on his small face but tried to hold them back. She couldn't just break down like that and cry in front of her own cousin. She turned around and began running as fast as possible while Shizune wondered what could have gotten into her. Had she said something that upset her? Even if she didn't really feel comfortable being around her, she didn't mean to make her cry. She felt bad now. She wanted to go after her, but Mai was running so fast that Shizune knew she wouldn't be able to catch up with her. After a short while, Mai was already out of sight. So she just let her be but secretly hoped she would be fine. Mai had run until she reached the Hokage mountain. She could finally catch her breath now but couldn't see clearly anymore as fresh wet tears blurred her vision. She felt completely helpless and vulnerable. She felt so lonely, as if nobody could understand her sorrow and pain. After all, how could someone do when they haven't shared and experienced the same pain? Though she simply needed to be reassured. Why did her father die? That's when she remembered she wasn't the only one to have experienced this kind of pain actually. Shizune's parents, no, her cousin's parents had died too. Why did they die too? Was her father's death linked to theirs? As she was in deep thought, a voice snapped her out of her rhetorical questioning. "My, I'm sorry you had to learn about it this way. I wish it would have been easier, but I guess there is no soft way to tackle the question of death, especially when it affects one so deeply." Quote. Of course Mai recognized that solemn voice. But she didn't dare face the man. So she didn't move and went on crying silently, occasionally sneezing. The Sandaime perfectly understood Mai needed to be alone to mourn, but he didn't like the thought of her being depressed and staying on her own after such a revelation had been made to her. He knew she needed to be comforted and reassured above all and thought it would be best if he was the one to do it. I know how losing someone close and precious feels, believe me. But even if it hurts deeply, you have to overcome the pain somehow, though it can take time. It's alright. It's perfectly natural to feel this way. The most important thing in those moments is to always remember your family and friends will always be here for you. And even if you have no family left, the village will always be one for you, you know. Quote. Mai stiffened as sudden realization hit her. That was exactly what Jiraiya had told her yesterday to comfort her. And it had worked pretty well actually. The Sandaime was now standing right next to her crying form as he gave her a soft look. Mai stopped crying and wiped her tears with her arm and hands, sneezing again. She knew the Hokage and Jiraiya were right and she didn't want to become like her mother, so she just cleared her mind, closing her eyes slowly, and took a deep breath. After all, it was a good thing she had let all her sorrow and pain out instantly. Now she felt better, as if a huge weight had been taken off her shoulders. She simply needed to know now how her father died. May I ask you a question? Quote. The Hokage almost let out a small laugh at her sudden formality and politeness. Of course you may. What is it? Quote. How did my father die? And what kind of man was he? Mai asked in a low tone. The Hokage silently sighed. Of course he had expected her to ask those questions, and after all he couldn't not tell her. She had a right to know after all. He died at war. He died as a worthy shinobi who fought for his village and to protect not only the villagers but those who mattered to him. He didn't hesitate a single second to sacrifice his life to save his comrades. He fought for what he thought was right, hoping the war would end faster if he contributed in it. He wasn't afraid of death and was a very honorable man who wasn't changed nor stained by the war, although he was well aware it would be very difficult to achieve peace and that there would still be a long way before being finally achieved. Quote. Mai was staring at the Hokage with wide eyes. She felt so flustered. Her father had been so great a man while she was just a novice who had no purpose except becoming the best shinobi. How selfish and arrogant. She felt a sudden surge of pride and admiration overwhelming her. Now she wanted to be one of her father, being helpful and worthy of the village and the others. However, if she became the best shinobi, she would be able to defend and protect not only the villagers but all her precious people, so that she would never lose someone like her mother did. Yes, now she was determined more than ever. She would have to train relentlessly from now on. She had no time to be weak and cry. It was now time to move on for her and sow something productive. After all, as Minato had told her, she would always have to overcome obstacles throughout her life and then would always have to stay strong. And he was right too. Thank you, Sandaime-sama. I feel much better now. Quote. The Hokage smiled at her warmly. Well, I'm really happy you do. And remember, if you ever have a problem or if something bothers you or anything, just come and see me, understood? Quote. Mai nodded in understanding. I will. Promise, she said confidently. The Hokage nodded as Mai began turning around. I'll see you later then, I guess, Mai. Quote. Mai nodded at him and smiled as she began running and waved at him. What a restless child, the Hokage thought. Mai was running through the streets of Konoha when suddenly she bumped into Shizune. The two girls exchanged a look as they were still on their butt, sitting on the ground. Mai hadn't foreseen to see her, so she was at a loss for words. Anyway, Shizune was the one to speak first. I'm sorry for earlier, are you okay? She said softly, still worried. Mai blinked owlishly at her before feeling confident again. Yes, I'm perfectly fine, don't worry. I should rather be the one asking you are you okay. Quote. Oh, yes, I'm good, it's alright. Shizune replied sheepishly, waving her hands in front of her to reinforce her words. Mai stayed silent as she thought about something. Sorry to bring about the topic again, but if your parents are dead, it means you live alone, right? Or do you have someone that takes care of you? Quote. No. Well, I was in an orphanage for the first 3 years of my life, but now I live on my own in my own apartment, although it may be weird for a 5-year-old child. But I manage perfectly well on my own, I don't need anyone you know. Quote, Shizune appeared so confident and sure of herself and also so content about the way her life was that it made Mai feel sheerly amazed. It made her feel happy somehow that Shizune was happy being an orphan. What about you? You still have your parents, right? Quote, no, I mean I still have my mother left but she doesn't seem to be ready to go back to the village yet, so a close friend of hers takes care of me for now. And my father, your uncle then, is dead too. I've never known him either. Mai said plainly but softly. Shizune gave her a sympathetic look before giving Mai a faint but sincere smile. Actually, she was glad she had someone of her family who wasn't dead. She never thought it would ever be the case. And now she wasn't of Mai anymore. She felt it was going to be the start of a great friendship. Cousins forever then? Quote, Shizune put forward her pinky as Mai stared at it surprised. Was Shizune really accepting her as her cousin? Mai smiled brightly at her and did the same with her pinky, putting it around Shizune so that the two were intertwined just as if they were one. Cousins forever. Quote, 4 years had already passed since Mai left her mother to go to Konoha. Today was a crucial day for Mai. After 4 years spent studying at the academy, she was finally going to take her final test, which would determine her ability to become a genin. Apparently, according to what their sensei had told them, they would simply have to be capable to make a cage bunshin. So logically she should graduate. She felt confident about the whole thing. Well, she had had very good grades all along in class and could proudly say she was the best among all the others. In fact, not exactly. There had been someone as good as her who matched her in everything. Hitaki Kakashi. And of course, it really got on Mai's nerves. But what made things worse was that that guy had graduated at the age of 6. Mai thought it was so unfair. Anyway, she was certain she could have graduated at 6 too. She just hadn't wanted to leave her only friend and cousin, so she waited and took this time as an opportunity to improve her skills even more and train hard, and so that she would be able to beat that Kakashi guy once she became a genin. Mai had arrived at the academy much earlier today, this time because it was an exam day. But now the others were all coming at the same time, and through the small crowd Mai spotted Rin with Obito by her side. Rin spotted her as well and waved at her. Mai simply grinned back at her, waiting for them to come next to her. Hey, how are you, Mai-chan? Today is finally the day? I am so excited. And I don't know why, but I feel a bit nervous at the same time, aren't you as well? Quote, no, why should we be? I mean, it is certain we are going to pass, so it is pointless to worry, you know, isn't it, Obito? Quote, yeah, of course we're gonna pass. It's not that kind of test that's gonna get us down. Obito replied, overly confident. Rin giggled softly at his attitude. Oh yes, I forget, you don't need to stress and worry since you are first in everything, Rin said, smiling happily. Hey, there's no need to be the best to make a cage bunshin, everyone can do it. Obito complained, a small pout beginning to form on his lips. Rin giggled again, which made Obito flush slightly. Yes, you're right. Anyway, let's get going now. They must be waiting for us. Quote, Mai and Obito agreed, and the three of them began walking towards the building. Once they entered the class, their sensei was already there, ready to begin. When everyone sat in their respective seats, he began speaking. Well, ohio everyone. I hope you are all ready for your final test. Before we get started, I need to tell you some important things that I did not mention previously. So, first, not everyone will be able to become a genin, which means only 50% of the class this year will graduate. That's why your grades and general attitude in class will play a great part in determining whether you will be able to pass or not, understood? Quote, an awkward silence followed the sensei's revelation. Most of the students nodded while some of them were still trying to process this key information, as others seemed to be sheerly confused. Perfect. Then we shall begin now if you do not have any questions to ask. Thus, I will call you one by one, as you may have guessed already, and we'll follow the alphabetical order. Quote, there was no reaction. Okay, so let's see who is first. The sensei went on as he shuffled through his papers to find the list. Meanwhile, Obito began utterly panicking. Oh no, what the why shouldn't everyone pass? I mean, if we can make a cage bunshin, we should all graduate and become genins. Quote, Mai and Rin just stared at him curiously as he made his little speech. Seriously, what kind of academy is that? Oh my, I'll never pass. Obito finished, starting to go into a depression mode. Rin gave him a sympathetic look as Mai seemed somehow to be troubled by the teacher's earlier statement. She found it strange that not all of them would be able to graduate but did not question it any further. They surely had good and valuable reasons to do things that way. Don't worry, Obito. Everything's going to be fine. Rin tried to reassure him, but it didn't seem to be really effective. It's no use. I'm screwed. I'll never manage to pass. My grades and my behavior are both catastrophic. Quote, Mai frowned. Though she didn't wish to question that decision, she didn't like the idea when it affected her friends. It wasn't fair to judge people like that and tell whether they could pass or not just if they were worth it. After all, everyone should have a chance even if they are not good. She really hoped Obito would pass. Half an hour later, it was finally Mai's turn to take the exam. Good luck, Mai. I'm sure you're going to nail it. Rin encouraged her cheerfully. As for Obito, he just looked at her with a blank look plastered on his face. Mai stood up swiftly and went straight to the door from where the teacher had called her name. Once she entered the room, a man who was standing by the door closed it instantly. Mai noticed there were 5 people present into the room, sitting at several desks put together. Her sensei, of course, and she recognized the Hokage. Yet, she had never seen the 3 others. They seemed to be the same age as the Sandaime. There was a woman among them, she noted. Had they been students of the Nidaime too? She wondered. Alright, Mai, you know what you have to do, so you may begin when you are ready, her sensei said emotionlessly. Mai glanced at the Sandaime before glancing quickly at the 3 others. She then focused on her task and made the hand signs for a Kage Bunshin. 1 second after 4 Kage Bunshin of herself appeared. The room remained silent while Mai stayed still as well. Good. Now can you try to perform the Henge no Jutsu? Her sensei asked as if he wanted to really test her. Mai complied and made the appropriate hand signs without any hesitation. She transformed into her mother without any difficulty. And you could say her sensei was fairly impressed. Mai waited for a short while before she transformed back to herself, all the Kage Bunshin disappearing as well. All of the examiners remained stoic all along. Very good, Mai. That will be all. You may return to the classroom now, the Sandaime stated solemnly. Mai nodded quickly and then bowed slightly before leaving the room swiftly. She closed the door slowly and carefully and returned to take her usual seat beside Obito and Rin. Both of them gave her a questioning look as she sat quietly. So, how did it go? Obito inquired out of curiosity, though he already guessed she had succeeded. The teacher asked me to make both a Kage Bunshin and a Henge no Jutsu. Mai replied plainly and solemnly. What? Are you serious? I'm doomed to stay at the academy for the rest of my life. Obito finished in a low tone, getting depressed again. Rin let out a very small nervous laugh which was almost inaudible. She found the situation quite awkward, but at the same time, deep down she didn't like at all to see Obito like this. Don't worry, Obito, you will pass. I won't let them make you not pass, Mai said firmly, or rather fiercely, determined. Obito gave her a skeptical look in return before asking in a sarcastic way. Or else what? You're gonna punch the teacher because they won't let me pass? Quote. Mai stared at him unamused but replied nothing while Rin held back a laugh. Anyway, don't panic like this. I don't think you'll have to make a Henge no Jutsu. In fact, I suspect I was the only one to be asked to do this by the teacher. Quote. Rin and Obito gave her a puzzled look. But why would he do that? Quote. Because I am the great-granddaughter of the Shodai, and for that specific reason he seems to bear a grudge against me. Quote. Seriously? But on the contrary, shouldn't he make you favors or that kind of things instead because you are not just anyone? Obito asked. Well, I guess not. I can't explain it anyway. Sometimes you just don't like people for some reason, or because you are naturally some kind of jerk, but in my case the reason is that I am related to a legend, as I told you. That's all. Mai stated very calmly and composed. Yet, Asuma is the son of the Sandaime and he doesn't seem to bear any grudge against him, Rin pointed out. Yeah, she's right. Obito agreed. I haven't noticed anything in particular honestly, so I guess he just wants to treat him as an average student. Or maybe because Asuma is the son of the Sandaime he is careful with his attitude, I don't know. Quote. Obito frowned as he thought about what Mai had just replied. What? Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Quote. Mai held back a sigh. I mean, obviously he won't ask Asuma to make a henge when the Sandaime is right next to him, you see. Quote. And so because you're not the daughter of the Sandaime but still the great-granddaughter of the Shodai, he can ask you just like that to make one. Without the Sandaime allowing him, or without having him consulting him before about it, right? Quote. That's it. Quote. Obito put on a thinking face again. I don't know if what you're assuming is correct, but still it's not very logical to me. Quote. I've never claimed it is. I'm just trying to draw conclusions and deduce from what I've observed since I first entered this classroom until now. Quote. Obito made the, I did not understand a thing of what you've just said, face but tried to make a suitable answer as best he could anyway. Treating you like shit and being unable to stand you just because you're related to someone overly famous is not a good reason at all anyway. I mean, it's not because he's just a pathetic average teacher that he has to hate you, it's really silly and mean. Quote. Mai shrugged casually. I don't mind, I've gotten used to it over time. You can't just change people like this or like everyone anyway. Quote. Rin and Obito nodded quietly as a response. There was a short silence afterwards. But what did they tell you? Obito asked, slightly changing the topic. They didn't say anything actually. They remained expressionless all along and I can't read people's minds, so I guess I'll never know what they really thought about my performance. Quote. Obito tensed. He preferred when people tell you frankly if you did bad or good, and this was going to stress him out even more. Even if they didn't show it, I'm sure they were really impressed and satisfied, Rin stated, trying to be positive. Mai gave her a faint smile. Perhaps Rin was right after all. A while after their discussion, Rin's turn came. Go Rin, you're gonna rock this. Obito cheered as Mai agreed. Yes, give everything you have, Mai added, smiling. Rin gave them both her brightest smile before leaving. Once she was out of their sight, Obito and Mai remained silent for a while, not really knowing what they should talk about now. Mai still couldn't really tell if they were friends or not, but she guessed they were. Well, they weren't particularly close as she was with Rin. Yet, Obito would always stay with her and Rin even if they didn't talk that much. Actually, Rin would make most of the talking every time. Or maybe Obito simply stayed because of Rin. If Rin hadn't been here in the first place, he certainly wouldn't have stayed with her so often. Yes, that made much more sense. Indeed, it had been very obvious from the very beginning that Obito had a big crush on Rin, Mai remembered. However, this thought saddened her very much, so she preferred to think that they were somehow friends, even if it was only because of Rin, technically speaking. Anyway, not long after Rin was back. So, how did it go? Obito asked eagerly. Rin was about to speak when she paused to think about her answer, not really sure about what she should say, or she should word it. Well, I think it was okay. Quote. Did they ask you to make a henge no jutsu too? Obito continued. Rin shook her head. No, I just had to make a kage bunshin and I did it well. So it should be alright. Obito and Mai both smiled. We knew you would rock it anyway. Obito added as Mai remained silent but was sheerly happy. So it seems you were right, Mai, Rin pointed out. It seems indeed, Mai commented. About 30 minutes later it was finally Obito's turn. Oh no, I'm sure I'm gonna fail anyway. Obito said, standing up. Ganbat Obito, I'm sure you can do it. Don't be so desperate, Rin encouraged warmly. Obito, don't panic. If you do, they are going to sense and it will make things even more difficult for you, Mai advised him carefully. Obito gave her an unconvinced look. Whether I panic or not, it won't change anything anyway. I'm gonna screw it up all the same, so. Quote. Mai clenched her teeth, not because she was angry but because she couldn't stomach the thought of seeing him so down. It was painful to her somehow. Yes, she couldn't stand to see people in general like this, especially those who were close to her. And feeling so powerless was awful. She wished she could really help, but right now she was feeling so useless that she was beginning to have a headache. Obito then left, leaving Rin and Mai worried for him. Do you think he will be alright? Rin asked for Mai's opinion. Suddenly, Mai seemed to feel confident again, as if her faith in Obito had been much stronger than her doubts, frustration, and feelings of powerlessness. Yes, he will pass, she replied with no hesitation in her soft voice. Mai stated that so firmly that it almost sounded as if she had had some kind of premonition. Rin spotted Obito exiting the room as her and Mai were talking about random things. Obito glanced at both of them as Rin smiled at him. He made his way quickly towards them. So, how do you feel? Rin asked softly. Well, at least I managed to make a kage bunshin, so I guess we'll just have to wait to know. Obito answered plainly, but he didn't seem to be so much stressed as he was earlier. I'm sure it will be good, Mai said confidently as an attempt to reassure him. Yet, Obito simply shrugged as if he didn't care. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Quote, everyone had now finished taking the test as the jury members were still deliberating. Mai, Obito and Rin were waiting outside and Obito was getting really impatient. But what is taking them so long? With what they saw, it should be quite enough to tell who the 50% who are gonna pass are and who the others who are gonna fail are. It's not that hard after all. Quote, but these sensei told us they would take into account our grades and our general attitude during these 4 years. Rin reminded him, hoping this would calm him down a bit. Whatever. Obito responded in a rather cold and uncaring tone which Rin wasn't really used to. So of course it took her aback somehow. Neither was Mai, but even like that she thought he was adorable. Yes, that's right. Wait, what? Shut up, stupid brain. Hey. The three of them turned their attention to the voice calling. It was Asuma with Kurenai by his side. Anxious for the results, aren't you? Asuma inquired in a rather relaxed and confident way. Well no, I mean kind of. With that the teacher said we have no idea what to expect, Rin told him. Asuma smirked. Really? I mean you and Mai have very exemplary behavior and good grades unlike some other. Asuma emphasized the last part suggestively which made Obito seethe in anger. You. Quote, hey, no need to get angry mister, I'm always late and never listen in class. I'm simply stating the truth, Asuma added casually. Shut up you jerk, Obito shouted at him. Please Obito calm down, don't take it too seriously, I'm sure he's only teasing you. Rin said attempting to release the growing tension. As for Mai, she seemed to be angered as well because of Asuma's attitude. Stop that, will you? Mai stated firmly and almost harshly in a low tone. Oh come on, don't tell me you're defending a loser like him too. Asuma replied looking a bit surprised. Mai frowned as Rin and Kurenai observed the scene in silence worriedly. As for Obito, hesitated at Mai in sheer shock. He couldn't quite believe Mai was actually standing up for him. And why shouldn't I? Mai asked almost aggressively. The others had never seen her like that yet. However, it wasn't the first time Obito was being made fun of, but this time, or rather in this particular context, it was too much for her. Usually, she would shrug it off, telling herself it was not intended to be mean and for fun, but now this was not funny at all. Asuma almost flinched at the look she had in her eyes. He didn't want to have any problem with her. Not after what had happened with Obito. It would be such an irony for him. He let out a nervous laugh before trying to make things right. Hey, chill, I was only teasing him. I have nothing against him, you know this, don't you Obito? Quote, Obito just glared at him while Mai crossed her arms not looking really convinced. Sorry about this, Asuma can be such a jerk sometimes, but on the inside he's not like that at all. He just does that because he wants to try to impress others with his awesome personality, don't you Asuma? Kurenai interfered as she was somewhat sick and tired by Asuma's jerky attitude by now. Yeah, Asuma merely stuttered as a response. Mai, Obito, Rin, Kurenai and Asuma were finally back at the academy. Hardly had they entered the building than Guy came running towards them as if something very serious had taken place. Oi, where have you all been? The results are finally displayed in the main hall. Guy asked almost shouting, boiling in anticipation. What? Obito said seeming to be completely lost. Come on now, there's no time to waste. Guy continued, seeing the lack of reaction on the part of the others. Thus, everyone rushed to the hall in the blink of an eye. Once they had reached it, they didn't even take the time to catch their breath and pushed through the crowd of students to search for their respective names on the lists. It was a real moment of anxiety for all of them. Oh Kami-sama, I did it. I've passed. Kurenai exclaimed first as she was now utterly happy, jumping up with her first in the air. Hey, I've passed too. What a relief. Asuma joined Kurenai in her excitement. I've passed too. Rin exclaimed. What about you two though? Rin inquired after a short while, somehow worried as she heard nothing from Obito or Mai. In fact, Mai had already found her name and now she was scanning the whole lists to see who had managed to pass as well. But she stopped and turned her attention to Rin. I've passed too, Mai said calmly, though there was a hint of happiness in her soft voice. Rin grinned brightly at her before focusing on Obito. What about you Obito then? Quote, Said boy couldn't find his name on the list. He was so stressed that he was unable to focus himself correctly. So Mai helped him as she continued to scan the end of the list carefully. You've passed 2, Obito. Congrats. Mai stated, overtly happy this time. Obito stared at her in shock, not having taken in fully what Mai had just said. I what? Seriously? Quote. Mai nodded, smiling. Look, your name is right here, she said, putting her finger on his name to show him. Obito stared at it in disbelief. It was so incredible. Oh my, I did it. I really did it. Quote. Congratulations, Obito. I knew you would do it. Rin exclaimed cheerfully. After a little while, Obito finally seemed to realize what he had achieved. Yes, I did it. I did it. That's so wicked. I'm a genin now. No, we all are genins now. Quote. Mai's mind drifted away as the others were congratulating Obito and each other. However, she was quickly snapped out of it by a familiar voice. Mai. Quote. Mai turned around. It was Shizune. She immediately tried to make her way out of the noisy crowd. Congratulations, Mai said to her. Thanks, and congrats to you too. Quote. It's finally over. I'm so excited. I can't wait for the ceremony to happen. Shizune continued. Yeah, me too, Mai said happily. That's something we have to celebrate. Shizune added. Yes, but how? Mai asked curiously. Shizune thought about it. Well, we should have a big party all together. What do you think about it? Quote. Mai wanted to laugh at her cousin's excitement and her somewhat extravagant ideas, but she held it back. She was definitely not used to that kind of things yet. Sure, why not? She replied almost awkwardly. Shizune grinned at her and Mai grinned back. It was so unusual for Mai to see Shizune act like this. It was so unlike her. But after all, this was a very particular and special moment, so it was understandable. Let's join the others and tell them then. Quote. Mai nodded and followed after Shizune. She felt this was going to be awesome.
That's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, share and do comments.